Not far from the city of Philo, the Forest of the Lost, the boy trembled with fear. And his reaction was understandable, for he didn't understand at all where the monsters had come from. They were goblins. One of the goblins wanted to kill the man with his sword. There was a full moon at the same time. There was also a slight nighttime cool breeze that blew leaves off the trees. A group of people arrived at the Forest of the Lost. It was a girl as well as two men. The girl was dressed as if she were a magician. A local small town posted a quest. It was said that low-level goblins walk in this part of the forest and attack the locals. However, they have nothing to fear, for they have Mistress Catherine with them. And with her to fulfill this quest became easy. But Catherine didn't come here to make money. Her father won't let her practice in the church, so this is the only way for her to practice. Catherine herself was a rank 2 mage from the Church of the Holy Cross. The boys tensed when they heard someone's humming. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw someone coming this way. He was humming a tune, too. It was a man with white hair, who was surprised that someone had gone deeper into the forest than himself. The two couldn't understand what the civilian was forgetting here, after all. Monsters are everywhere, and it's very dangerous. And since there's really a lot of island here, it's just what he needed. He took an order from the local settlement, and came here to kill this monster. The man with the shield noticed that his suit was rather strange and there was no armor. Therefore, he looks like an ordinary human. However, it is surprising that he wants to fight monsters. The other man, on the other hand, decided to measure his mental strength. The guy with white hair started to get angry because he was being poked in the face with it. The other man said to relax because it's just a meter. He just wanted to measure its power. However, his mental strength was 0. The guy started laughing, because even ordinary people have a strength of 5. How is he going to fight monsters with such strength? Although the local monsters are weak, but the man with the meter thinks that this passerby won't even last a minute. He wondered what kind of mental power these people were talking about. He'd never used it, but he was good at killing monsters. They only laughed even more, for this guy is a great joker. He doesn't even know what mental power is and has killed monsters. A walking joke. Catherine revealed that mental power is an ability that allows you to fight monsters. For thousands of years, humans have been awakening mental power so that they can stand up to monsters. Those who can control it are able to surpass human capabilities. Depending on the amount of strength, people are categorized into ranks, namely into S, A, B, C, D, and E. The guy told me that Catherine-san was able to rise to the D rank at a young age. She could easily handle the local monsters. Therefore, the guy with white hair better go back home while he still can. However, he refused and just passed by. The other person couldn't even figure out when this guy managed to overtake him. Looks like he should have his eyesight checked. He was starting to get angry that the bastard wasn't listening to them. In response, the guy just gave him the middle finger. Catherine replied that there was no point. If he wants to go, let him go. She had already gone here without the church's permission, so there was no need to make a scene. The monsters here are all weak, so it's okay if a person with 0 mental power walks around. He can be useful when they are collecting loot from the monsters, after which they started killing goblins. Catherine harmed the spirit of the water to answer her call. In the name of holy water, fight evil, show your power. She used the secret magic of the Steve family, the Great Whirlpool. Still, running this errand will make it really easy. These guys wanted to do all the dirty work, so they told the mistress not to dig through the goblin remains. Can't have mistress getting her hands dirty. The guy, on the other hand, noticed that those two directly idolized this girl. He mentioned that they were rank 1 monsters, however. There was still no need to relax. There are still enemies ahead, after all. They arrived at some ruins. This is a strange place, and the quest didn't say anything about it. The main character advised them to be careful, because the atmosphere here is heavy. But since they are here, there is nothing to worry about. Catherine also advised them not to relax. This place is different from the forest, and she had a bad feeling about it. The red-eyed crows were watching these people. The rat was also hiding behind rocks, and the goblin quietly watched his prey. As the girl walked by, she just happened to notice this monster. She turned to the boys, asking what it was. The others noticed that this monster was too huge. Could it be a rank 1 monster too? However, Catherine isn't sure about that. Even though it doesn't move, her intuition tells her that something is wrong. She noticed that the man wanted to approach the monster and told him not to. The man thought the monster seemed familiar. He had definitely seen something like it. He started poking at the goblin's leg. However, there was no response. He shouted to Ms. Katerina that it looked like an ordinary corpse, so this time it would be easy. However, the goblin's eyes lit up. The protagonist yelled for him to be careful. However, the man didn't have time to do anything about it. He lost his arm in an instant, the man's entire body in shaking, and he didn't even expect that this monster was alive. It was a monster of the 3rd rank, a goblin leader. He let out a roar of his own, which caused the two to faint. Catherine approached, worried about their condition. The boy, however, replied that it was obvious that she was shaken up. The girl advised him not to take any action. She would be able to protect him. Catherine realized that this monster was quite strong, so this fact cannot be neglected. She must use her strongest spell and put all her strength into this blow. The girl again asked the spirit in the water to answer her call. In the name of the holy water, unleash the divine power and cast out the unclean. Now the goblin will contemplate the secret enchantments of the highest order of the ancient grimoires. She summoned a mad shark. However, the goblin leader dispelled her technique with ease. The girl didn't understand at all how such a thing was possible. After that, the thought came into her head that this monster was at least a rank 3 monster. What should she do now? Afterward, she noticed that this goblin was about to hit her. Catherine managed to make a water barrier to protect herself. However, even though she had time to cast a defense spell, but even so, she took damage. She can't defeat this monster. But there was information in the assignment that only rank 1 monsters should be here. How did things turn out like this in the first place? Only rank 1 mentalists are able to compete with rank 3 monsters. A group of 5 or 6 ranked mentalists could hardly do that. It's not even worth talking about this group. Those 2 rank E knights are already unconscious. She's pretty badly injured. Is she really destined to die here? And only that poor guy, obviously the most ordinary person without any abilities. And now they have to die together because of her selfishness. The goblin leader swung around to kill the girl. She prepared for her death. However, Catherine opened her eyes, not realizing how she was still alive. What she saw stunned her. This was the guy she thought was weak, the one who had stopped the goblin chief's sword with just 2 fingers. Goblin's whole body shook. Catherine didn't understand how that was possible. Had she really been saved by this guy? He was able to block the attack using only his fingers, but this is a rank 3 monster. The protagonist turned to the girl, asking if she could move. Catherine replied that she was fine. In that case, tell her to stand aside, or she might get caught in it. She immediately moved away and hid behind a tree, asking if it was far enough away. The boy replied that it was far enough, whereupon he turned to the thug. The protagonist kindly asked if he had ever been struck by lightning. If not, he's about to feel it all. The goblin leader began to shake even more. Sensing the obvious threat, lightning began to form in the sky, after which the protagonist used a thunderous attraction, and now the goblin was struck by lightning. Catherine didn't expect that he could actually cause thunder and lightning. It's just unfathomable. I wondered if he was just hiding the fact that he was a thunder and lightning wizard, after which the protagonist of these informed that he was done, so the girl could come out. She used her eyes to make sure that this goblin was indeed dead. A single boom was enough to instantly kill a monster of such a rank. This magic is truly amazing. The city of Ferno has not seen such talented magicians in a long time. My father told me that strong people can sometimes deliberately hide their strength, making it appear to those around them that they are almost at 0. And then, at the moment when they need to reveal all the cards, they maximize its concentration. All this in order to inflict as much damage as possible in a short period of time. Perhaps this man is one of those people. It's starting to get light. The two finally woke up and saw the corpse of a rank 3 monster. They wondered if that guy had really killed it. But he didn't have a single bit of mental power. Catherine advised them not to be so skeptical. If that guy hadn't come to the rescue in time yesterday, none of them would be alive anymore. This guy's their savior. True, though she doesn't know what he's doing now, she's sure of something. This guy is incredibly strong. They approached the protagonist, calling him a benefactor, and also admitted that they had let themselves go extra last night. They asked not to hold grudges against them. This time, they have both quite a lot of valuable loot and also what this monster had with him. So they wondered how the benefactor was going to divide it all up. Of course, the protagonist will take it all for himself. These two began to argue that they too had worked hard yesterday, so they deserved at least a little. So the protagonist decided to give them each a toenail from the toe of a goblin of the 1st rank. The man without a hand began to claim that it was too little, and he had lost his hand in a fight yesterday. He asked the benefactor to give some more materials. The man with white hair advised him to be moderate, for he had already healed that man's wounds. What he had treated his wound with was the protagonist's best medicine. He didn't even ask for money for it. After a long meditation practice, this mysterious man dealt with yesterday's prey with more. Now they have divided everything according to conscience, and if no one objects, he will go. Catherine didn't expect him to really leave like that. The boy replied that he still had to go into the village to get the reward. He didn't like the fact that the guy took everything he could get a good deal on. He's too stingy. The guy with no arm mentioned that there was something very valuable that he didn't take with him. The thought had crossed his mind last night that this monster looked familiar. It turned out to be the goblin for whom the Witches' Association was offering a good reward. Of course, the white-haired guy's excellent hearing smelled it all. They talked about just getting the corpse of this goblin to the Ferno, and there they could trade it for more money. The kid stopped and wondered what they had just said. Is it really possible to get paid for it? Ferno. There, they exchanged the corpse of the chief with a third-rank goblin, which is worth 1,000 spiritual baht. A royal two-handed goblin sword worth 150 spiritual baht, and all other materials worth 150 spiritual baht. The total came out to 1,300 spiritual baht. The local and spiritual bats were absolutely identical to the spiritual stones he had used before. Even though they were of a low order, however, there were quite a few of them. They would greatly help him in the cultivation process. He saw the frustrated look on the two men's faces. So the guy decided to give them 30 spiritual baht each. Now let them go home and lick their wounds. They thanked their benefactor. Since they are now even, the guy decided to leave. However, he was stopped by Catherine. She touched his arm, asking him not to leave just yet. He turned his attention to her. As it turned out, the girl would like to know his name, if that's okay with him. The man with white hair introduced himself as Zhong Tianshun, the inn in Ferno. Tian Shun noticed that this thing was hanging around the goblin chief's neck. But even so, after being struck by lightning, he remained unharmed. In addition, the faint spiritual energy of the immortal world emanates from it. It must be quite valuable, so he decided to keep it. Meanwhile, the guy fell asleep in the water, and this necklace started to glow. Above the water, ears began to peek out. After that, a girl with a tail came out of there. It was a 9-tailed fox werewolf named Bai Qing, who was happy that she was finally free after 5,000 years. Afterward, she turned her attention to the main character, who woke her up. Bai Qing even felt an incredible amount of spiritual energy emanating from him. Who would have thought that she would be so lucky today? In that case, she decided to give it a try. The girl kissed him right on the lips. What she felt was incredible, so soft and wet and juicy. Her body was filling with spiritual energy, and it felt so good. Suddenly, Tian Shun opened his eyes and inquired who she was. She immediately jerked away from him, not expecting this guy to wake up. Bai Qing explained that this guy made her get reacquainted. Doesn't he remember anything at all? At that minute, the protagonist guessed that she was eating the very fox that was engraved on the pendant. She was so busy thinking about the need to replenish her spiritual powers that she didn't even notice how handsome this man was. And physically, he was beautifully built. First of all, you need to check it out. Tian Shun asked the little fox what she was up to. His consciousness began to cloud over. Two girls appeared before his eyes, wondering why this gentleman was taking a bath all alone. Doesn't he feel cold and lonely? That's why they wanted to help him. These girls will be able to dispel his boredom. They possess unique techniques that will allow you to relax and get pleasure. The girl noticed that the gentleman's muscles were very strong, and it feels like her heart is about to jump out of her chest. Perhaps the gentleman can even feel it. His body's getting hotter and hotter. No need for such a wash. She wanted to use her body to massage his back. It would definitely allow him to relax. Meanwhile, the vixen watched this illusion. If this man can't resist the art of seduction either, she doesn't even know who else in this world can help her. Perhaps she should go back to sleep. Suddenly, the protagonist stood up for some reason. The girl wondered if the spell had no effect on him. He asked the vixen if she had played. Attention. The girl's attention was focused on the dazzling glow. For some reason, the guy felt like he wasn't constrained by anything. It wasn't until later that he realized he'd completely spoken. Bai Qing's nose bled. A little later, the guy pantsed and guessed she was a spirit artifact. For this pendant, the vixen is a werewolf, and her specialty is messing with people's minds. Now that she's seen it all with her own eyes, there's no point in hiding it. She is the ancient essence of the northern 9-tailed fox ornament, and after thousands of years of continuous practice, she finally managed to take on a human form. But because of the concentrated demonic energy, she had to fall into slumber. Bai Qing had already thought that she would sleep forever, But who would have thought that she would meet this guy like this? His spiritual energy guided her from her long sleep. She also felt that there was an incredible amount of spiritual energy concentrated in this guy's case. Afterward, she questioned whether he was a cultivator. Tian Shun replied that I will. About the vixen knowing something that there shouldn't have been even one cultivator left in this world. 5,000 years ago, there was a great battle. Namely between the world of the immortals and the demon world, at the end of which, all the cultivator clans were wiped out. Not a single cultivator was left. Due to the influence of the demonic aura, the world had changed drastically. The major sects that were previously respected and revered by everyone had turned into ruins. In the whirlwind of events over time, the history of cultivators was forgotten. Instead, many other races emerged and developed. Snake people, elves, succubi, and many other unknown races that live on the same continent as them. And in all these years while the fox was sleeping, it had also not sensed the presence of cultivators. And Bai Qing was wondering how this cultivator managed to survive and now, after thousands of years, will reappear here. The truth is, the guy himself doesn't know it. Tian Shun doesn't remember well what happened back then. Even if he has memory lapses, he should not worry, because memories should return with the passage of time. The protagonist hopes for that too. Tian Shun wondered if the technique that the fox used on him was in order to gauge the level of his spiritual strength. As an artifact spirit that didn't have the help of a cultivator, she couldn't develop her abilities on her own. And his guess was correct. But that wasn't the only problem. In this world full of demonic energy, without spiritual food, she wouldn't last long. The vixen senses his powerful spiritual energy, so she asked if she could follow him. The protagonist clearly did not expect such a suggestion. She has a well-developed charm. Even in a world with such a concentration of demonic energy, she can sense ancient artifacts. Therefore, she could definitely be of use to him. Since she says so, they have a deal. Foxy didn't even expect this guy to agree so easily. Couldn't he even think about it for a moment? She would improve herself by absorbing his spiritual energy. Isn't there anything he wants to ask of her in return? For example, she could offer her body in exchange for spiritual energy or something like that. The boy replied that there was no need for that. It would cost him nothing to share the amount of spiritual energy that the fox needed. It was only then that she realized that this guy was telling the truth. What's more, she promised to help find ancient artifacts. As the two wandered around the city, the vixen realized that the name Zhong Tianshun seemed very familiar to her. However, she didn't know where she had heard it. Suddenly she felt something. The protagonist inquired about what had happened. As it turned out, Bai Qing felt a very powerful artifact. In that case, they should go and check it out. One of the squares in Ferno. There are quite a few people gathered here. We can assume there's some kind of celebration. Foxy could clearly feel the aura of the artifact that emanated from that place. The boy offered to join the celebration. There stood two knights who were guarding the sword. It seems that the artifact the vixen spoke of is this blade. According to the ancient custom, in a few days, there would be a test of the braves. People didn't even know this time which of the four great families would be able to pass this test. But even if someone passes the test, so what of the one? The old man had been living in this world for many years, but he had never seen anyone who had succeeded in pulling out the sword. Foxy asked her grandfather, and what was so special about this sword? At the young lady's words, the old man realized that she was not from around here. There isn't a single person in this city who doesn't know what this sword is. The blade of the brave is a sacred blade that has been preserved since ancient times. A blade that has centuries of history. It has always been stuck into this boulder. According to legend, only the worthy can pull it out. For 1,000 years, many attempts have been made to pull out the sword in many different ways, but no one has ever succeeded. Perhaps this worthy brave from the legends will never appear. She noticed Tian Shun's gaze and wondered what was wrong. She noticed Tian Shun's gaze and wondered what had happened. The boy thought he'd seen this blade before. 5,000 years ago, a valley of master blacksmiths created this blade. In the hand, it feels no heavier than a feather, but it paralyzes the enemy with its sharpness. It is the greatest blade of all. And if he can achieve enlightenment, this blade can become the spirit guardian of the Qing Lun blade. There is only one worthy person in the whole world who can own it. At that moment, the boy realized that this sword belonged to him. Who would have thought that after that great battle, he would find it here? Foxy asked if he was telling the truth. The boy replied that he was. He even remembered its name. The name of this blade is the Soaring Dragon. He broke through the crowd. However, he was blocked by the blades of the knights. No one dares to break the rules here. This is the sacred sword of the city of Ferno, so no civilian is allowed to approach it. But they said themselves that there must be a brave man who can get him out. And that brave man is a guy. They laughed, for it had been thousands of years since anyone had been able to get their hands on that blade. And what made her think this guy could do it? There must be something wrong with her head. Whoever got caught could never pull the sword out. Well, if he wants to give it a try, he has to pass the Braves tryout first. You need the recommendation of 4 great families to participate. And these 2 are definitely not from the Big 4. Looks like there's someone here who's looking for a good beating. The man inquired what family they were from. If they were not a member of one of the 4 great families, he had no right to admit them. In response, the protagonist asked what they would do if he was not a member of one of the 4 great families. In that case, they'll make them go away. A girl showed up there and told everyone to stop. And it was Catherine who explained that this man is the family's guest of honor, Steve. How dare they treat him like that? They immediately apologized fearfully. The knights began to explain that they knew the man was her guest. They apologized to Miss Katerina. Other people wondered how this rough-looking man was able to meet Steve's family. And moreover, the miss of the family. She asked Zhong Tianshun if he wanted to try and get that sword. The Surgeon General replied that yes, however these people would not let him in. According to the rules, only those who pass the trials of the Braves can try to get it. It had been that way for years, and it was beyond her power to change anything. The boy replied that those rules were too stupid. Foxy mentioned that there was no hurry for them. This sword is his property, so no one else will be able to take it out. Moreover, this challenge might be interesting. They might even be lucky enough to find more treasures. You don't go into a foreign monastery with your own rules. As a member of one of the 4 great families, she can sign a recommendation for a Tian Shun. The guy asked how much he had to pay for it. Catherine replied that it was completely free of charge. He asked that the vixen sign her recommendation too, since she was his companion. Catherine agreed. Catherine noticed that this girl was very pretty, and even the style of dress was very similar to that of Tian Shun. She wondered what kind of relationship these 2 were in. A few days later, near the outskirts of Ferno, the Valley of Ghosts, Guy could feel the concentrated demonic energy everywhere. It's pretty interesting. Still, it's a great place to test the brave. There were quite a few people gathered there. Looks like all the contestants have arrived. So it's time to let the rules of the Braves contest play out. Each of them should head deep into the Ghost Valley. The kid noticed that Catherine was here too. And they must also get 3 devil cores that had been prepared in advance by the spiritual order. The middle rank Nun Mel, whose mental strength is at rank C, explained that the devil core was the greatest treasure of demonic entities that were of great value. The Holy Cross spiritual order placed the 3 cores into the bodies of 3 third-ranked entities. Whoever returns tomorrow before noon with the devil's core will be the winner. It's too dangerous to fight against a rank 3 monster because you could lose your life. There are only 3 of them, which means only 3 will pass the test. These conditions are too harsh. There appeared a man who thought the task would be difficult. However, for the Onassis clan, this is a no-brainer. The representative of the Onassis family was Carl, whose mental power ranked with. A person from the Dupan clan, whose name was Mai A, mental strength rank C, advised him not to get cocky before his time. If this ordeal were really so simple, there would be many more willing to take part. He had better prepare himself for the possibility that he might tarnish his family's name if he failed. This time, Carl and May are the most promising candidates. Moreover, they are irreconcilable enemies. Therefore, the man thought it would be an interesting show. The 2 of them can be called geniuses, but who is the stronger of the 2? The Dupont family holds a commanding position in the city of Ferno. Therefore, Mai A must be stronger. This guy can not only pass the test, but also pull out the sword. Mai heard that he was recognized as the strongest rookie. Carl's a long way off. Carla believed that this bastard was his main competitor, so it's too early to relax. Getting the devil's core was just the beginning. Only the one who comes back here alive can be called the true winner. May even thought that this guy had already given up. Tian Shun felt a heavy aura. This guy seemed to be the one Catherine was talking about. The Onassis family doesn't like the Steve family, especially Carl. He's incredibly violent, so once the kid's in Ghost Valley, it's best to stay away from him. He's very dangerous. Tian Shun replied that he would be careful. Carl thought that the Steve family really had some mental problems. They even sent the most ordinary person without mental powers for the test. He couldn't even be taken into consideration. Ferno will only be talking about him this time. The monks did not announce that the trial had begun, Everyone immediately set out for the journey in the Ghost Valley. Carl noticed that there is also a fork in the road here. Very interesting. He also noticed that there were thorns and thorns everywhere. From the second entrance, concentrated demonic energy is oozing out. It resembles the energy that comes from high-ranked monsters, and the two on the right seem like pretty good options, especially the one from the depths that has a faint light emanating from it. She decided to choose it. Mayfair can feel the faint wind currents coming through the third entrance, which means there must be an exit. There can be no mistake. The first entrance is covered in thorns, so it would be hard to go that way. However, it would also be hard for the monsters to use this exit. Therefore, they should choose it for safety reasons. Meanwhile, Catherine was asked how she could give a recommendation to someone who had no mental power. That was very curious. Mel explained that for the average person to go into this valley would be like signing a death warrant. Isn't she afraid that the Steve family's reputation would suffer because of it? Catherine replied that it wasn't like that, and she didn't do it for the family. The girl just wanted to fulfill his wish. Tian Shun is not an ordinary person at all. He possesses incredible strength. That's why she believed that he could pass this test, because he is the most trustworthy person she has ever met. Catherine had said that the valley was divided into several areas, but the fox didn't even know which road they should take. There are a lot of forks in the whole place. The protagonist decided to go in the direction that this branch would fall. Was that really all he could think of? The guy replied that it was a pretty reliable way. The branch fell straight down. They will take the road from which concentrated demonic energy emanates. Bacon remarked that this road looked rather creepy. Foxy grabbed his arm and asked if he was listening to anything. The boy answered that he hadn't. Her sixth sense told her that something very scary lived here. There's a terrifying aura that makes her body stiff and hard to breathe. The guy thought it was because she was too tightly pressed against him. Suddenly she heard some sounds. Afterward, they saw something that looked like a corpse ahead of them. It was like the corpse of a girl in ragged clothes that hadn't been touched to the ground. The moon was full. The boy stared silently at the spectacle before him. As soon as the vixen saw that he wanted to approach this creature, he immediately protested. After all, this is the Ghost Valley. This girl is definitely a ghost. However, the protagonist does not believe in ghosts. He'll think it's just a lost girl. He touched her shoulder, after which she decided to turn around to see who had disturbed her. The expression on her face was intimidating, and the guy only remained silent, not even scared. He then punched her right in the face, telling her that it was time for her to retire, whereupon she fell to the ground. Now he too realized that it was indeed a ghost. It seems that the monsters that will be on this path are ghosts. And why would they choose the scariest path possible? Tian Shun wondered if this ghost wasn't beautiful. He asked her to help take off her clothes. She clearly didn't expect such a request from him. In fact, if you look closely, this girl is not badly built. Even the fox recognized that hers from Egypt was simply beautiful. She hoped that Zhong Tianshun didn't want to take off her clothes to do something inappropriate while her body was still warm. She was snapped out of her thoughts by the voice of the protagonist, who informed her that he was done. She hadn't even expected him to finish so quickly. The boy explained that this girl's dress was made of silk. It might be a little worn, but if the fabric was of good quality, it could be sold for a good price. He managed to find many more interesting things. He also hopes to encounter more such ghosts in the future. The next target has been located. Just like last time, the guy touched her shoulder, and as soon as the ghost turned to him, he made a funny grimace. From fright, the girl had already fallen to the ground herself. This evening has been a nightmare for the ghosts of this valley. Wherever Zhong Tianshun and Bai Qing went, all the ghosts they encountered remained naked. Why does this place have such a creepy name anyway? I wonder if it's really haunted. It's a very scary place, and people have disappeared here, and no one knows what happened to them afterward. By the time they were found, they could no longer be called human. They turned into flesh-eating creatures. But they only come out at night. What else can you call them but ghosts? Suddenly, a hand appeared from the ground. It was the ghost of a man. There was a crowd of ghosts behind him as well. The two of them trembled. Could it be that these creatures were hiding underground to avoid the thorns? The man had miscalculated. If these were indeed the missing people, there were too many of them to defeat here. The ghost of a man attacked them. Someone's blood has been spilled. Meanwhile, the main character, as well as the vixen, were walking on. The boy was humming something at the same time. This guy is a little greedy and spontaneous in his actions, but she feels safe around him. Even in this frightening forest, she's not so scared anymore. Another ghost appeared in front of them. This ghost knew how to talk. She didn't even expect that there were still people who could go this deep into the Ghost Valley. It's really amazing. These whiny little brats don't even dare to approach her. In front of him was a rank 3 monster, namely a ghost servant. But those two look so skinny. It seems like she'll stay hungry even after eating these people. The guy tossed his sack, talking about how he didn't even know if she'd stay hungry or not. But her clothes she certainly won't be able to keep. She clearly hadn't expected such a statement from someone so bold. The ghost servant wondered what it meant that she wouldn't be able to keep her clothes. I've seen the option, which is what it means. What's not clear about it at all? How dare some human being talk to her like that? He's asking for serious trouble. She summoned scarlet patterns and ordered those two to be torn apart. Does she really think a few bats are really capable of this? She underestimates people too much. Before he could do anything, however, the vixen engaged the blue flame. That blue flame scattered all the bats. A ghost servant called her a sorceress. She burned all the scarlet mice in the blink of an eye. She seems to have some powers. Even though Bai Qing had slept for so many years, however, she still remembered how to use this light. Tian Shun remarked that it was pretty cool. The vixen replied that it was child's play. The protagonist was willing to give up this ghost if that's what she wanted. However, the vixen thought he could handle it better, and she could in turn help with the bats. The servant ghost didn't understand what was wrong with these two, and it made her very angry that they even dared to ignore her. She's the bloody monster here, after all. The guy immediately attacked her, saying that since the vixen didn't want to deal with this ghost, he wouldn't be ceremonious. Just before he could touch her breasts, she immediately dodged it. This action embarrassed her. The ghost immediately increased the distance and asked what was wrong with this guy. Could it be that he was a pervert? He even dared to paw the ghost. Tian Shun swept his eyes over the fact that it wasn't the ghost's breasts that he wanted. Her dress could be sold at a great price. So before he tackles his rival, he should start by picking up the dress while it's still in one piece. He used martial arts techniques, indestructible. Foxy didn't expect him to have such incredible speed. She doesn't even have time to blink. The servant ghost asked for it to stop, after which her clothes flew off of her, and all that's left of the ghost is the devil's core. The vixen recognized it as the same devil core, the presence of which was the main condition for passing the test. It was in the body of this ghost woman. The fellow, on the other hand, was glad that through this ordeal, he was able to plot to enrich himself as well as get his sword back. Now that he had gotten the core, he would be able to draw his sword. The vixen offered to return the same way. However, the boy replied that there was no need to be in such a hurry. One could find far more monsters here than they had encountered before. He won't miss a single one. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Ghost Valley, a fierce battle was unfolding. Mei stood over the defeated corpse of the animal. Now he had obtained a rank 3 devil core monster as well. He thought that it was even too easy. There was a person who had clearly not expected that Mai Yi would defeat a rank 3 monster so quickly, and even get a demonic core. That man was Carl. He thought Mei was just lucky. Mai Yi accused the guy of following him. Does he want to just kill the guy and take the treasure for himself? However, there's no need for that, as he also has a devil core. After that, Mai Yi realized that Carl had come here to kill him. He only smiled, indicating that this guess was true. Mei asked if he has the strength to do what he claims. However, he decided to attack first, after which the man took a swing, wishing him a speedy death. Carl drew his blade, indicating that he was just a reckless idiot. He was able to block that punch. After a few minutes, Mei Yi realized that Carl was capable of fighting him on equal footing, which was unexpected. He had clearly gotten stronger. In any case, their mental village corresponds to the rank width, which means you can't handle him alone. Carl called him a real jackass. Did he really allow the thought of Carl coming alone? An arrow immediately flew into him. The guy knew it was over. That arrow was soaked in poison. Another participant appeared there, saying that this meeting was very unexpected. Mai Yi asked him if he had really decided to join forces with Carl to finish him off. John of the Walton family, whose mental power is equal to the rank of C, replied that he who is wise is the one who is observant. The Onassis family is gaining more weight in Ferno day by day. Only by having such an ally will he be able to get the demonic core. He asked the bastards if they knew the consequences of their actions. It's an insult to the family du jour. A gun was put to his throat. Carl explained that what happens in Ghost Valley is forever here, after which he finished off Mai. Carl scoffed at Togo for being a bastard, having left him a stick in his wheels for so many years, and ended up dying by Carl's blade. He won't be so arrogant now. Jonah mentioned that he was the one who helped kill Mei. so he asked if he could have the demon core he received. That's what Carl was talking about. What happens in the Valley of Ghosts stays in the Valley of Ghosts forever. John didn't understand what that meant. Could he be talking about wanting to get the witness out of the way? After which he threw a punch at John. He's already gotten even with his main opponent, so he can't leave alive a guy who could turn him in at any moment. Suddenly, the concentrated demonic energy made him sit on the ground. The aura of those rank 3 monsters doesn't compare to this. The guy wondered what was even going on here. Catherine inquired in Mistress Chalk if she could sense it. The nun realized that it was definitely not one of the monsters that had been trained by the spiritual order. She assumed that some other monster had wandered into the area set aside for the trial. This energy is too powerful. At the very least, it's a rank 4 monster, if not higher. In order to defeat this monster, one needs the strength of 3 experts who possess the mental power of rank B. If one firmly assessed the situation, she should immediately stop the trials. Catherine hoped that Zhong Tianshun would be all right. On the column sat a rank 4 gargoyle monster. The vixen noticed that this monster was different from all the ones they had met before. As long as this monster doesn't see them, it's better to go another way. However, the guy didn't want to leave so easily because you have to keep your word. Tian Shun, after all, said to kill all the monsters, which meant that he wouldn't miss one monster either. The gargoyle was surprised that these people hadn't rushed off to run for their lives. He hadn't seen such fools in a long time. He even assumed that their mental power was so small that they couldn't even feel its terrifying monster aura. Foxy noticed how, and the guy only chuckled and wondered what he was babbling about. He saw not the monster in front of him, but his gem. What normal person would run away when there's a bag of money right in front of them? The monster wondered what this guy meant by money. However, the main character immediately jumped towards him, after which he flipped his opponent off. The gargoyle didn't understand what else it was, after all. He definitely didn't feel even a drop of mental power from him. But this guy was still capable of delivering such a blow. The monster wondered how he managed to do it. However, he must realize for himself that he lacks mental strength. It means that he found another way to develop his body, and that's why he was able to strike such a blow. His figure may not be up to something like that, but it's the only logical explanation. Tian Shun approached him and recognized that this monster was quite tough, for it didn't even lose consciousness from this blow. The gargoyle called him too ignorant and arrogant. He sees right through this man. The monster even decided to show off its absolute armor, after which it turned into a stone form. In this state, his body is covered in extremely hard granite. It doesn't matter how strong this guy is. If he hits this form, he will break his arm. He is now helpless in front of the gargoyle. But the truth is that this monster didn't even expect that with a single blow, the protagonist could crack its armor. He didn't understand what was wrong with this guy. The monster opponent didn't even hesitate for a second. He had never met anyone like this before. After that, the monster was thrown further away. A foxy girl ran up to him and asked Zhong Tianshun if he was okay. The guy replied that the guy's head was pretty hard. His hand was even numb. He even noticed that the vixen had taken his bag as well. Bai Qing replied that it was their trophy after all. Of course, they shouldn't be forgotten. Suddenly, she felt a demonic energy. She's aiming in the direction of that monster. This is no longer a joke, so the guy better be careful. The protagonist replied that he knows it himself. He also told the vixen to stay out of the fight, since her job is to guard things. He still has to get paid for all of this after all. The monster has picked up on the fact that people are really different. This was the first time he had ever met someone like this. Monster was even grateful to the main guy that now he could stretch his muscles. It's been a long time since he's been in such high spirits. But this guy will not survive the consequences of his actions. He used a technique called Dark Raid to kill this guy. A demonic aura enveloped them. Tian Shun noticed that his aura was poisonous by its spots on his face. His magic not only restrains and repels the enemy, it can also poison the enemy in the process of battle. At the same time, at the entrance of the Ghost Valley, all participants were immediately withdrawn due to the interference of a rank 4 monster in the trials. Mel said that things weren't even that bad, since almost everyone had returned safely. Catherine noticed, however, that the two had not yet returned. She began to worry about Zhong Tianshun and Bai Qing. The monster stated that his demonic energy had already spread throughout the Ghost Valley. Pretty soon, all living things will be poisoned by its venom. They have nowhere to run. The boy asked the vixen if she was scared. Bai Qing replied that she was a little uneasy at first, but she was with this guy, so she wasn't scared. The protagonist liked her answer, after which he created a shield around the chanterelle. This is his golden pearl shield. The golden pearl dome that is created should protect the vixen from poison. Bai King wondered why he didn't use this shield on himself if he had something similar. For what purpose did he choose to protect her? Foxy promised to protect his pouch, didn't she? If the stuff is contaminated with toxins, he won't be able to sell it. She was beginning to think that money was more important to this guy than her own life. The toxicity of this poison increases over time. One move would be enough for him to kill this monster. He would then need to use the purification mantra to detoxify it. He can't defend himself, but he's still trying to save others. Does he still think he can resist the gargoyle in such a state? Tian Shun replied that this guy only knows how to talk. A prototype of the spirit of heavenly weapons. The 7 stars will see the harsh comparison. The monster wondered why he was waving his arms around. He was mumbling to himself. I wondered if the poison had made him so unhinged. The vixen began to feel like she had heard something like this somewhere. An ancient treasure of the Xuan Tian clan. The blessing of the 5 lightning bolts. Saying that those who possess this knowledge are able to control thunder and electricity, cause rain, tame demons, pray for the repulsion of evil, and perform a ghost purification ceremony. Who would have thought that Zhong Tianshun possessed such a technique? He ordered the thunder of the 9 spheres of the heavens to immediately carry out his order. The blessing of 5 lightning bolts. A thunderous execution. It was unclear to the monster how a person who had no mental power could use magic. It's truly amazing. But what could such a small sphere even do to him? He'll show you what real magic is. He used his secret technique and his little balloon became huge. After which he channeled this attack of the direct protagonist. But the protagonist noticed that this monster is too ignorant, because it's not even magic, and the techniques of cultivators. After which, he sent a ball of lightning to counter this strike. A ball of lightning cut through the gargoyle's attack. The master couldn't understand how it was even possible. How that orb could cut through the sphere of darkness. Is he really going to lose? He was under orders not to let anyone bother her. His mission is not yet complete. Foxy didn't even expect such explosive power to be concentrated in such a small electric sphere. This was truly the blessing of the 5 lightning bolts. Mel also noticed this more powerful one that makes the whole valley shake. That's a real earthquake. Could it be because of that monster? However, she realized that she was wrong. Because a rank 4 monster could not be responsible for this explosion. It should definitely be much stronger. A rank 5 or even higher. In this situation, one can only ask for the help of the spiritual order. This is where the S-ranked Master Yam should be sent. Only then will there be a chance to deal with this monster. That night, a huge portion of the Ghost Valley was destroyed by Zhong Tianshun. The gargoyle's body was burned. The guy was upset that he'd overdone it with that punch. As if burning it wouldn't affect its value. Fortunately, the core remained intact. Foxy mentioned that the guy was still poisoned, so she asked how he was feeling now. The protagonist replied that it was nothing serious. He just needs to get some rest and meditate. The poison will wear off in minutes. Foxy didn't understand why he was going to such trouble. Tian Shun wondered what she meant. Did she really know another way to get rid of the poison? Without a word, she immediately kissed him right on the lips. The guy realized that this way she was helping to get the poison out of her system. The poison slowly began to drain from his face. After a while, she finally finished it. The protagonist replied that he could deal with the poison in his body, however, he could not save her. Bai Qing replied that she shouldn't worry, because she wouldn't die. She is his companion spirit after all, so she should have been able to help. She has poison in her body right now, but since the spiritual energy of Tian Shun is nourishing her, she will be back to normal very soon. As long as everything is in order, there's no problem. Foxy also asked if he had heard of the Xuan Tian clan. After all, he is also a cultivator. However, the guy hadn't heard anything like that, and also wondered why she was asking about it. Foxy decided to change the subject to the fact that it was time for them to head back. On the other side of the Ghost Valley, everyone is terrified to see the appearance of this monster. It's quite a long road from Ferno to Ghost Valley, so it will take some time for the spiritual order's reinforcements to arrive. Until the S-rank mental power masters arrive here, she must guard the exit with all her might, even if it costs her life. They can't let this monster harm the Ferno. The multitude of soldiers behind her trembled. After that, 2 figures appeared there. Mel reported that the monster was coming and told everyone to get ready. However, it was the main character who was carrying the corpse of the burned monster and asked if they had decided to be welcomed here. Foxy mentioned that they weren't late, so they passed that test. No one could believe that this guy was dragging the corpse of a monster. Did he really defeat it? How could an ordinary person with no mental powers even do that? Judging from the aura, It was indeed a rank 4 monster that had strayed into the valley. However, she didn't realize what that explosion was back then. She definitely sensed a much more powerful energy. Could this explosion have been created by that guy? Perhaps he's hiding his mental power. She wondered just how powerful he was. Catherine knew they could return safely. The monster's aura even terrified Carl. He's the strongest rookie ever. How could that little brat even kill him? Something inexplicable must have happened to the pressure. That's why that monster died. And that bastard was just lucky to find him dead. He threw the monster's corpse on the ground. He asked if there was anyone here from the Witches' Guild. He asked how much they would offer for the monster. The vixen turned her attention to the bag. Here they would find a lot of interesting things they had managed to collect from the monsters. Mel didn't even expect that they were going to sell it all here. The boy asked if it was forbidden. The girl replied that she could do as she wished. He had defeated a rank 4 monster, but he still decided to fight those little monsters. What kind of people were they, after all? Soon after Zhong Tianshun and Bai Qing left, an uninvited guest appeared in the depths of the Ghost Valley. The girl noticed that his pet had been killed after all, and now she would have to go back on her own. The Ferno rookies are so strong this time, it's even annoying. She noticed something. To herself, she pulled over a couple of pebbles that for some reason made her feel nostalgic. It was only then that she realized that it was spiritual power. This is the trace of the battle with the cultivator. Everyone had calmed down a bit at the end of the trial of the Braves. Tian Shun and Bai Qing sold this corpse of a rank 4 monster, and all the things they had managed to gather in the Ghost Valley. After all this, they returned to the Holy Ball Square, even though there were some difficulties during the test this time. But everything ended well. 2 candidates were able to obtain the demonic core. Carl, from the Onassis family, received 2 3rd-rank demonic cores. Zhong Tianshun, a participant recommended by the Steve family, received 1 rank 3 demonic core, and 1 rank 4 demonic core of a monster that had accidentally wandered into the valley. The monsters of the 4th rank are beyond the competence of the test subjects. According to the rules, it is Carl number 1, and it is to his person that all attention must be paid. Tian Shun wondered what he was staring at. Hasn't he ever seen his ears cleaned before? Carl only thought about how disgusting it was. Since they have come to the trials, they can now try to get the sword. Next will be the Holy Sword ceremony. The girl inquired who wanted to be the first. Carla wanted to be the first. After all, he is the most outstanding heir of the 4 great families. Speaking of who should take him out, it should definitely be Carl. The nun's only thought was that this guy was overconfident. He grabbed his sword and tried to pull it out. To do so, he tensed all his muscles. After a while, however, he fell to the floor. That sword just can't be pulled out. It looks like it's just a ball of silly legend. If even he can't do it, the others can't even think about it. Others began to talk about the fact that they would not see anything outstanding this year either. Since Carl didn't make it, there's nothing to see. Maybe next year someone will be able to do it. Catherine mentioned that it wasn't just Carl who passed the Braves' trials. Bai Qing replied that now it's Zhong Tianshun's turn. However, he didn't care about those people. He's just going to get his thing back. Carl didn't know what this guy was talking about. He talks as if the holy sword were already in his pocket. Mel wondered what this guy was hiding, after which the protagonist jumped right to his ball. A golden aura covered the sword. It was as if the protagonist heard a voice saying that he had finally arrived. At that moment, he realized that the sword was talking to him. He no longer knows how many years you've spent here waiting. Sword asked if the guy remembered their glory days. He had once lured Tian Shun into a monster's lair with a single phrase, where they had fought for 3 days and 3 nights. And then they participated in the Flying Immortal competition. The guy used a sword and, bypassing all the obstacles, led them to victory. They fought side by side and were each other's true family. In the end, the guy was meditating by the waterfall, and the sword was pretending. The sword called himself the protagonist's partner. He is someone who is simply essential on the path to immortality. Something about Tian Shun had a bad feeling. This sword seems to be very agitated. Perhaps it was because it had been alone for 5,000 years. It doesn't matter how long this ball has been waiting, because now it's coming home. He slowly began to pull out his sword. The others began to wonder what was going on. The holy sword began to emit such a dazzling light. After which, he drew his sword, greeting the soaring dragon welcome back. The others didn't expect this guy to be able to pull out a sword at all. For 5,000 years, no one had been able to do it, and this guy was able to do it so easily. Everyone was wondering who this man was. A dragon began to form around the sword. As it turned out, the ancient artifact was a hovering sword in the shape of a small dragon. He was glad that he had finally gotten out of that stupid rock. Afterward, the dragon asked how the little guy felt when he saw him in his prime again. He thought this kid was incredibly disheveled, and the main character didn't like being called a baby. The soaring dragon wondered why he was silent. Was he really that happy that they had met again? Or was his subconscious still wandering in memories of the glorious times the dragon had recalled? Tian Shun's reply was that he didn't remember anything from what the dragon had told him. Had he always been so narcissistic? He also said never to call him that again. The others didn't expect at all that the holy sword had turned into an unseen divine being, and it was chatting so nicely with this man. And the guy just scolded him. So this guy really has forgotten everything. But that's not the worst outcome. Surviving a battle like this is a miracle. Tian Shun had lost his memory, but he was still able to find his sword, which means that not even thousands of years can keep them apart. The guy will always fly to the light emitted by the dragon. The protagonist replied that he'd better turn to the ball again. Is it because of the fact that he is more masculine in this form? Tian Shun replied that that was not the reason. Catherine doesn't know why the able-bodied man took that view, but the guy managed to pull it off. She should be the first to congratulate him. She congratulated the kid and also mentioned that she always believed he could do it. He is now an honored Ferno brave. Tian Shun started to claim that he was the one who should be thanking her. After which, he thanked her for writing a recommendation for them. It was all she could do for him. It was so touching to see the main character thank her. Suddenly, she noticed a tail. It was Bai Chen who immediately hugged Tian Shun. She recognized that he was definitely an absolutely challenging person. The guy was actually able to match this first-class weapon. It was like Catherine was starting to fall apart. Bai Qing realized that her decision to follow this guy was right. He really is the best. The main character said to stop it. He can't breathe. I wonder if she's trying to strangle him. Catherine didn't understand why it was like this. Could it be because she was being too modest? If she was a little more determined, then Zhong Tianshun would embrace her. The legend from thousands of years ago turned out to be true, and it's truly amazing. The Holy Sword still has the power to transform. Mel has been hosting this event for several years now, and today she was fortunate enough to witness the Holy Sword find its owner. It was incredibly moving. She asked that the sword be handed over to her, as she wanted to take a closer look at it. Zhong Tianshun held out the sword and also asked her not to break it. This sword is very expensive, and Maul, I can afford it. The vixen realized that the guy didn't even spend a penny on it. It's pretty weighty, so you have to hold it tight. Mel said there's no reason to worry because she'll take a look and return it right away. However, once she had a sword in her hands, she couldn't hold it back. The protagonist had warned him to hold on tight, hadn't he? Fox thought that wasn't the problem at all. I mean, he passed the ball normally and she couldn't even hold it. So the chalk shouldn't blame him. The nun suggested that it was because the sword had already recognized the guy as its master, and others wouldn't be able to lift it. It is an ancient high-level weapon. Only immortal cultivators who possess spiritual power can control it. Otherwise, no one can do it. In the great war of immortals and demons, not a few magical artifacts must have been lost. They're all scattered around the world. And in this world, there is only one person who can use them. Specifically, Zhong Tianshun. The boy noticed that the blade was a little dull. He asked the nun if she was willing to reimburse him. Then he wouldn't hold her responsible. She assumed that the guy had given her the sword on purpose, so that he could blackmail her under that pretext. The head of the Steve family, whose name is Heath, has arrived there. He had heard that the brave man Catherine had recommended had drawn his sword. That's an incredible accomplishment, especially at such a young age. They threw a banquet on this occasion of hers. So he came here to invite the true hero to dine with them. Tian Shun asked who he was and why he should dine with him. Mel mentioned that he was the head of the Steve family, one of the 4 great families. This is Catherine's father. The guy pulled out the holy sword, and therefore is a reason for the pride of the Steve family, as its prestige has increased. The man invited the protagonist to personally express his gratitude. Therefore, there is no need to be so rude. Tian Shun thought about how this was a great opportunity to make some money, but Catherine looked saddened. All the girl could think about was that she was just a loser. This guy was right in front of her and she couldn't even do anything. He approached the girl and asked what she was doing here. Her father had invited them to the banquet. She could feel his breath so close. Her heart was about to burst out of her chest. What would she do if he heard it? Suddenly she remembered about the guy now going to her house for lunch. The protagonist noticed that there was something strange about today. As expected of a hero who managed to get his hands on the holy sword, he really stands out from the crowd. The residents of the Steve family. Bai Qing remarked that this house is huge. Catherine replied that if they didn't mind, they could stay here. Of course, they won't have to pay for food and lodging. Tian Shun noticed that this man had tons of money. He also mentioned that he had gotten a sword, and now the Steve family would become much more popular. He thought that he was due for it. Heath mentioned that if he didn't have enough money, he would tell the butler to carry over how much he needed. The guy mentioned that the head of the family, Steve, is a very nice man. It's natural, because he's a Ferno hero and a little support he could use. But the truth about him saying that, because he just needs money. The protagonist replied that they could eat and they shouldn't worry about him. Heath thought that the food was not to his taste, but the guy replied that as long as he had money, he didn't need water or food. He didn't even know why that was so. Bai Qing realized that this was what fasting was. It was rumored that cultivators who had reached the higher realms could practice with just spiritual power without relying on food and drink. So he had already reached such heights. But the guy just doesn't remember it, so he doesn't know what the reason for this behavior is. A few minutes later, the hovering dragon reported that it had had enough. Tian Shun was angry because he didn't even realize when this dragon had managed to get out. The dragon mentioned that he had smelled the flavor of food for the first time in 5,000 years. Heath only thought that the incarnation of the holy sword looked even more amazing up close. He was approached by Catherine, who wondered if he had sold the demonic core he had brought from the Valley of Ghosts. 2 demonic cores appeared in the guy's hands. He thought that it was quite a rare item, and so he was in no hurry to sell it. He also wondered what it was even for. This is a fairly rare material that can only be obtained from high-level monsters. There are not so many of them, and therefore they are highly valued. They are most often used to reinforce equipment. You just need to add the core during the process of forging weapon armor, which will greatly increase the quality of the item. Items with a magic core will also be more effective in battle against monsters. The Demon Hunters Association is actively abusing the cores. And with the proceeds of the 4th Order magic core, you can buy a nice house in Ferno. Just 1 core and you can buy a whole house with it. He's gonna be rich. However, the dragon ate him. This core was a little stiff, but overall not bad. The dragon asked if he had another core like it. Suddenly the dragon noticed that his aura had changed. That stupid dragon just ate his whole house. But after all, the dragon had just eaten 2 demon cores. He wondered what was wrong. The guy tried to pull the core out, telling that stupid dragon that he wanted to sell and buy himself a house. He spent half a day pulling that core out of that gargoyle's head. Heath told the Lord that he shouldn't do that. It's the holy sword of Ferno, and it could get him killed. And he wouldn't be able to explain himself to the townspeople. Since the dragon ate the demonic core, he would give the Lord a house in return. Tian Shun replied that this man was not being pulled by his tongue, so he wouldn't be able to refuse his words. But suddenly the dragon felt a powerful energy spreading through his body. It seemed to be getting stronger because of this core. However, the protagonist thought that the dragon just decided to fool him. Foxy mentioned that it was indeed possible. Even though it can turn into a dragon, it's still a weapon. Catherine also mentioned that the demonic core enhanced it. The head steward of the family, Steve, whose name is heard, has arrived to join them. He said that the 3 great Ferno families and the spiritual order of the Holy Cross had sent gifts to the hero. Therefore the man inquired if he should bring them so that they could familiarize themselves with these gifts. The main character was immediately excited when he heard that these gifts were for him, so he asked to bring them here as soon as possible. The Walton family gives 30,000 spiritual baht, as well as a deed to a luxury villa in the prestigious neighborhood of Ferno. Nothing less was expected from the 4 great families. Guy was glad that he now had 30,000 spiritual baht, but the Lord has already promised him a house, so he doesn't need this piece of paper, so it's better to give him the money. The DuPont family gives the hero a paladin's armor. This golden armor is impossible to break through. Even with the most ferocious monster, it will be hard to crush a Tian Shun. He's not used to such heavy and bulky armor, so it would be better to give the gift in money. The Onassis family sent 3 beautiful maids. The protagonist wondered how beautiful they were. The girl with blue hair replied that they were very impressed with this gentleman. He held himself so courageously and finally got that sword. They were honored to be around them. So she asked if they could stay by his side and serve him forever. They'll do whatever he tells them to do. As long as the girls are around, he's sure to be comfortable. Catherine realized that they were clearly unlike normal maids. It was very unseemly of the Onassis family to send such a gift, but he has 3 beautiful girls in front of him, so he can't resist. The maid replied that the master deserved it. He remembered again their words that they would do anything to satisfy him. The girl replied that they were up for anything. Tian Shun turned to Herd, saying that these 3 would also be better exchanged for money. There was no way they could try to placate him with women. The girls couldn't believe at all that they had been rejected. One of them had been in the business for so long, and this was the first person to turn her down. The hero's willpower is truly incredible. But the other girl started to feel like he just wanted more showers, and a final gift from the Ecclesiastical Order of the Holy Cross. The gift of spiritual mentor chalk for the brave man is a knight's medal. The guy's the only one who's managed to pull out the holy sword in 1,000 years. The order decided to award him a medal in recognition of his contribution to the development of Ferno. Tian Shun noticed that this medal looked good, so I'll ask the forces if it could be exchanged for money. The monks didn't explain that a knight medal is the highest honor, a symbol of high status. It's not something that can be measured in money. It's a symbol of recognition of the order. As long as the guy has this medal, then he can give the order to any follower below D rank. The protagonist decided to keep it. The girl mentioned that there was something else besides the medal. Tian Shun replied that if she wanted something, let her say it directly. She was only wasting time. This may seem cavalier, but she asked if the chalk could touch the guy. Catherine did not understand what it meant that she wanted to touch Zhong Tianshun. Mel is really brave. The protagonist wondered if she was trying to make some kind of profit for herself. The girl was just extremely curious about his power. She practices magic that can determine the power of others. This even applied to previously unknown species. Tian Shun managed to pull out the holy sword without having a single bit of mind power. She wants to understand what kind of power is contained within his body. Foxy wondered if that was really how she would test his strength. Catherine replied that she didn't know. The main character mentioned that if she kept groping him, he would write her a check. Mel asked to wait another minute. He really doesn't have any trace of mind power. We need to keep moving. It's the only way she'll be able to sense his true power. Suddenly the girl fell down, and the others wondered what had happened to Mrs. Chalk. Did she really feel something? The nun said that she felt some unknown power that she felt from the holy sword. It is an incredible power that has nothing to do with the power of the mind. Suddenly they all felt a terrifying power. The guy sensed the monster's aura from over there. Looks like it's time to get to work. The city was attacked by an ancient dragon. People began to be consumed by the fire, and they screamed for rescue. The girl sat on the ground, trembling, and did not understand where the monster had come from. They existed only in fairy tales. How he ended up in this world in the first place. She thought it was over, and the Ferno would just burn to the ground along with its inhabitants. The main character appeared in front of her and told the girl not to worry. He only blew and was able to defend himself against the fire. Mel just couldn't believe her eyes, because this guy had a slight blast that caused this dragon's fire to blow away. They're not the least bit surprised. I mean, that defies common sense. Catherine mentioned that when it comes to Zhong Tianshun, nothing is impossible. It's a standard situation, and she'll get used to it soon enough. But what is the dragon doing here anyway? And what is going on here? The ancient legend of Ferno says that he is like the holy sword from the distant past. The energy of the holy sword attracts the dragon, so it has attacked the city more than once. The dragon spewed flames, destroying everything around it, turning the city into a veritable hell. Their mages were powerless in the face of such a powerful foe, and everyone could only hope for the appearance of a hero who could draw the holy sword. But that hero never came. Fortunately, over time, the dragon weakened, and so stopped attacking the city so actively, and eventually disappeared. As it turns out, it's all true. Foxy thought about the blade, and Zhong Tianshun attracted him. Perhaps the ancient dragon and the dragon blade were somehow related. The protagonist has to completely figure it out. Since he is the one who pulled out the sword, he will be able to kill the dragon as well. Tian Shun mentioned to make sure this girl remembered to pay for her bodyguard services to him. The girl asked Mr. Hero what that meant. Doesn't he charge money for saving a life? But she doesn't have any spirit stones right now. However, she can repay in kind. Suddenly they noticed that this dragon was attacking again. It must have gone crazy to attack head-on. The boy only raised his hand to the dragon's mouth, after which he ordered him to lie down. That's what the dragon did. Mel couldn't believe the terrifying power. The whole Ferno shook like an earthquake. Tian Shun noticed that this beast was not particularly docile. It seemed to be mad with sickness. It's a very ancient monster. but the guy has very little sense of the energy currents flowing in it. The soaring dragon reported that it was an artifact. This beast must have absorbed the magic artifact back during the Great Battle, and the village tortured it. It senses the spiritual power of the soaring dragon, and therefore thinks that the dragon will be able to help by relieving it of its pain. However, the soaring dragon has never paid attention to it. It hasn't manifested for thousands of years, so he thought the dragon was dead. Who would have thought it would show up right now? What luck that he now has an artifact in front of him that he will get his hands on. He kicked the dragon, asking him not to think about the fact that if he pretended to be dead, the guy would let him go. If he didn't get the artifact, the dragon wouldn't leave here alive either. The dragon flew away from him. However, the protagonist was able to guarantee his words. He struck him with his ball, after which this blow struck the dragon's belly. Thanks to that, he spit out some kind of artifact along with the blood. Foxy noticed the ancient dragon spewing artifacts and thought the guy had defeated him. He caught this artifact. As it turned out, it was an ancient magical artifact called the Qian mirror. When he hit the mirror, it was like a different space. The guy realized that he now had an artifact of space and time in his hands. And now he knew where he could store the spiritual stones he had earned. The soaring dragon mentioned that not only could it be used to store items, but it could also be used for living and practicing. And if you find the right materials and refine it, this space can also be used for other things. Simply put, it is a whole world that is under the control of Tian Shun. As long as something is illuminated by this mirror, it will be absorbed and will be inside. Suddenly, Zhong Tianshun was addressed as the head of the Xuan Tian sect. It was a dragon that recognized him. The protagonist asked if he really recognized him. The dragon replied that there was no way he could the cultivator who had once fought their demonic deity. The person in front of him is the same cultivator, but as if not quite. The boy didn't understand what this dragon was saying. Let him tell it normally. The dragon mentioned that the guy looks the same, but his temperament is different, as well as his strength being significantly inferior to before. The dragon wondered what had happened to him, and how in the world was Tian Shun able to survive the battle with the demonic god. The dragon asked what he did to the demonic god. The protagonist replied that maybe he just died. He didn't like the main character's attitude towards the demon god. The demon god is the absolute ruler who united the demon world. All living things obey him. No cultivator can stop the demon god, and this guy is no exception. He used the dragon's breath. The protagonist pointed his sword, saying that this dragon had asked for trouble himself. The sword began to resist the dragon's flames, after which the protagonist unleashed the appearance of a dragon. Thus, the ancient dragon was defeated. The boy didn't understand. They were both dragons after all, so why is this one so weak? A little while later, he asked the soaring dragon if he wanted the demonic core of the ancient dragon. The dragon replied that ever since he had absorbed the first one, that was all he had been thinking about. The protagonist also remembered the beast's words about being Zhong Tianshun, but kind of not really. So he asked what that meant. Soaring Dragon Vid knows a lot about those times. The first time they met, the main character said he had lost his memory. The soaring dragon realized the reason even then. It was just that it was too early, so he didn't want to tell me. In fact, he is only a part of the soul of Zhong Tianshun, a true follower of the San Tian sect. For some unknown reason, the boy regained consciousness. That's why that dragon said he was different from Zhong Tianshun. Now, it's no wonder that when a guy sees a dragon, only scraps of unrelated memories pop up in his mind. In fact, when he came to his senses, he was still residing in the Xuan Yuan village, and was only released when the thunder started. This makes sense, for the Xuan Yuan tree is an ancient sacred tree. Evil forces cannot affect the spiritual energy contained within it. Being there in a dream is what gave him consciousness. The protagonist wondered. But what happened to the real body, and what exactly happened that year? 5,000 years ago, a demonic deity was born into the world. He was invincible. Step by step he advanced, conquering the entire world. At the moment when the demon god was intoxicated by his achievements, the high priest prophesied to him that he would fall at the hand of the immortal. To change his fate, the demon god created tainted weapons with which to confront the cultivators. He led an army of demons and waged war on the cultivators. In this great war, the immortals suffered great losses. But the founder of the Xuan Tian sect fought to the last moment in an attempt to stop the demon god. He used all his power to imprison the demon god within his own soul, and then blew it up, perishing with the demon god. Because the head of Xuan Tian was practicing secret techniques, His soul was not destroyed, but simply split into 9 pieces. And now they are scattered all over the continent. The soaring dragon hadn't recognized his power before, but now he had approval. And since the guy inherited the title of the founder of the Suyan Tian sect, he should know this history of hatred. He must revive the honor and glory of the immortal cultivators. Their main goal now is to find the shards of the original spirit. So, the dragon is now telling the guy that he's not even who he thought he was, and immediately puts such a burden of responsibility on his shoulders. But the dragon realizes that it's still hard for him to accept. But who would even want to take such a responsibility? If there is such a person, let him take it. He is not interested. If this guy doesn't search for the original spirit shards, the world of immortals will truly come to an end. It seems that the soaring dragon has only one way out. He said that each spirit shard contains incredible power and various techniques to help you become stronger. In addition, the sect founder had left many spirit artifacts that would be attracted to the original spirit. That is to say, if they find the spirit shards, they can take the artifacts as well. Each artifact is a priceless treasure. As soon as he heard the word priceless, he realized that now was the time to leave Ferno. Now they set out to search for the spirit shards and the treasure of Xuan Tian. In the meantime, the girl nailed the demon goddess and also reported that she had brought what the lady had asked for, namely the desecrated weapons of the ruler's cube. This cop is really great. So the demon goddess recognized that it was so strange to gain such power after 5,000 years. She also reported feeling the immortal's aura near the Ferno. Another person who couldn't believe that the immortal was still alive intervened in their conversation. The demon god ordered the head of this immortal to be brought to him, on the eve of Zhong Tianshun's departure from Ferno. Ever since this guy showed up in town, amazing things have been happening here. Not only did he kill an ancient dragon, I also used spatial techniques. I find that hard to believe. She wondered what kind of magic this guy had, and why, after their meeting, he was all she could think about. However, the girl realized that she should not allow such thoughts. Thinking about a man is a sin. As a nun, she must keep her emotions and desires in check. Catherine's bedroom. The girl thought about the fact that Tian Shun was already leaving tomorrow, and she still hadn't done anything until now. Catherine hoped that they would still have the opportunity to meet again. But she still didn't know what she should do in that case, or whether she should confess her feelings. But it's so awkward. And what it's going to do if it's rejected. It's complicated. Bai Qing thought about the fact that Catherine is not only beautiful and well-built, but most importantly, she has a lot of money. Therefore, Zhong Tianshun should like her. She's even a little jealous, but if it doesn't work out, the protagonist will surely regret it, so you have to help them. Catherine noticed that suddenly, that haze was coming from somewhere. She didn't understand what had happened to her, and her body felt somehow strange. The main character entered her bedroom and informed her that he was leaving tomorrow. The fox told him to come to say goodbye to her. She was glad he had finally come. The girl had been waiting for him. Catherine even thought he would leave without saying goodbye to her. But he couldn't leave her like that. The guy noticed that she didn't have a very healthy complexion. Besides, it's easy to catch a cold in those clothes, and she should drink more hot drinks. He thanked her for her concern, and also mentioned that he didn't want to bother her so late. Let her stay warm and take care of herself. And then he said goodbye. She hugged him from behind, begging him not to leave. Catherine didn't want this guy to leave her at all. When the main character saved her before the goblin, it was at that moment that she had already fallen in love with him. Because of him, Catherine can't sleep every night. Before Tian Shun leaves, why don't they leave special memories of each other? The protagonist knew she would never say such a thing to him, so he wondered if the fox had done something to her. The girl replied that it was not true, and she was at her wit's end. She also knows what she's doing, after which her clothes fell off. The next day, when they were already outside of the city, the vixen wondered what had happened. He hadn't said a word the whole time. Plus, he's so absent-minded. I wonder if he didn't sleep well last night. The boy replied that he was fine. That sentence made him seem to come to his senses. He still had Catherine in front of him. Afterward, the main character mentioned that he slept great last night. She winked and was glad for it. A Carl appeared in their path. The guy said that Zhong Tianshun wasn't going anywhere today. Bai Qi assumed that this guy must be out of his mind. How dare this man alone block their path? Carl wondered who said he was even alone. Carl's mother came out of hiding. The girl declared that the holy sword was a Ferno treasure. Therefore it couldn't belong to a guy like him. She demanded that the sword be handed over, and then the Onassis family would never bother him again. However, he will also get what he deserves today. The shining sword of the Walton Palapa family, strength level S, declared that he had taken away the demonic core in the Trial of Heroes and killed John Walton without hesitation. The great knight of the Dupont family, Alan, strength level S, was angry that his son died at the hands of an protagonist, so he is determined to take revenge today. So all the losers decided to come to his soul at the same time. Tian Shun asked if Carl had put them up to it and told them all sorts of nonsense. Carl told him to shut up. The power will decide everything now. Even if they had C-level strength or even S-level strength, he didn't care. All are equal before his blade. He needs to get out of town. But since these people are in his way, he's going to die. Carl thought there was no limit to his impudence. The S-rank representatives of the three great Ferno families are here, and they are about to teach him a lesson. This man had overpowered him many times, taking away what was rightfully his. So it's time to repay him for that. Today, Tian Shun will die a miserable death. Since this person has the patience to teach him a lesson, let him do it. Zhong Tianshun is in a hurry. Palap thought it was just a boy without any mental power. He had managed to defeat the ancient dragon by relying on some clever tricks of his own. And at that moment, he was just lucky. And now, he decided to show what true S-rank strength was. He created a bird out of lightning, telling it to pierce his enemies. The protagonist created a lightning dragon, talking about how he too can do such a trick. The lightning dragon was able to suppress the bird created from lightning. The man just couldn't believe his eyes. How he had managed to kill that bird in an instant, okay. Seeing the lightning dragon coming at them on defense, Alan decided to stand up. He used a guardian of divine light. After that, a dome formed there, which protected them from this attack. Alan recognized that it was such a powerful attack that his hand was even numb. This guy is much stronger than what they expected. If his shield wasn't strong enough, the consequences would be quite severe. Carl's mother asked what was wrong with these two. They hadn't fought anyone in a long time and had forgotten how to do it. The man mentioned that he wasn't as easy as he might seem, so it was worth being careful. The reputation of the Onassis family has been forged by arms and established in battle, and she certainly won't be wary of some boy. And if they let these two leave the Ferno, their three families will be dishonored. She attacked them with the whip, screaming that these guys were finished. They did nothing against this strike. The woman didn't think it was enough. She wants them dead in a flash of eyes, and then she'll be satisfied. This woman is truly crazy. Even his divine light guardian wouldn't be able to withstand her attacks. Carl found out that his mother should have already beaten this guy to pieces. That's what happens to those who annoy the master. Her whip was grabbed by the protagonist. The woman didn't understand how that was possible. Could it be that he was using an even stronger shield than Alan's? The boy began to argue that these whips were only good for sadistic games. She wouldn't kill anyone with them. But she's dressed to match. Tian Shun had heard that nobles had all sorts of interesting tendencies. He pulled the whip, thinking he could get a decent price for her leather skirt. She told him to stop and asked him what he wanted to do. The protagonist replied that it was nothing special. He just happened to like her clothes. She was surprised that this guy was saying these things with an unwavering expression on his face. Could he really be a pervert? She let go of her whip and jumped away from him. It was dangerous after all. And if he did what he wanted, it could hurt her reputation. Alan noticed that Jenny was blushing. The woman told him to shut up. Carl didn't understand why they couldn't do anything. These are the strongest Ferno fighters in the world, and even they can't take on this guy. But after all, Tian Shun doesn't even have mental strength. Then how did he even have such strength in the first place? Carl was incredibly angry. The protagonist wondered if they didn't just want to teach him a lesson, so why are they standing around? But if they were done, now it was his turn. He appeared behind Carl, saying that he had only learned the technique a couple days ago, and therefore wasn't really used to it. So this is a great opportunity to practice. He used the strip technique. The chilling feeling made him realize he was completely naked. It's a shame all the clothes are torn. Carl called the protagonist a bastard and asked what he wanted to do. How dare he even dare to humiliate the young master? He threatened to tear Tian Shun apart. The protagonist advised him he better get his pants up, because this time he's going to take care of his mother. She immediately dodged his blows. She noticed that this guy was still hoping for his nefarious tricks and wondered what it all meant. He kept going on and on about how he liked the woman's clothes and ogled her. The woman also mentioned that she had a son about the same age as Tian Shun. He'd better put his dirty thoughts away. In the name of a bright future for the Onassis family, she's gonna kill this guy tonight. Now Jenny's gonna show her worth. She's also not someone who dabbles in magic, so he should be proud that he's gonna die this way. The woman used the magic of the Onassis family, the destructive shot, and the main character started running away, not understanding why these people don't believe him if he just wants to make money. Does he look like a pervert? This guy can run all he wants. However, Jenny's magic projectiles will still be aimed at him. Tian Shun told the fox to stand there and not move. He will go get one thing, and these balls will not touch her. The fox was surprised that he wanted to do this during the battle. However, there is no need to worry because it is simple magic. Those shells won't be able to catch up with him. King noticed that he had just pulled out something. This guy was so fast that she can't see anything at all. He immediately flew over to Jenny and asked if she really thought the guy wanted more from her. Then he'd do what she wanted him to do. After which he used his technique again. She tried to grasp the clothes that remained on her body and began to feel embarrassed. How would she ever look people in the eye now? She called the protagonist a libertine. Is it enough for Tian Shun to be called a libertine? You need to practice more. She asked what the guy was going to do with her whip. Decided to show his father a response to his actions, after which he tied up the woman. Jenny realized it was over. The thought settled in her head that age was just a number. Women only get better with age, and now she was completely defenseless against him. What was he going to do to her? Carl told that animal to let his mother go. She shouldn't even treat her like that. Fox knew that Zhong Tianshun thought somewhat differently from other people. He couldn't be compared to normal people at all. Carl ordered the men who were standing behind him to attack together. Would they really stand by and watch the bastard insult his mother? However, there is no need to worry. These two are willing to do whatever it takes. Palop engaged the lightning blade, Snowblink. Alan activated the technique of the Great Knight, the patronage of the gods. With this technique, he became bigger. Of course, the protagonist noticed that his opponent had become so huge. Alan noticed that he had become much stronger than he was, and now the boy will experience it for himself, namely the incomparable power of a deity. After which he struck with his sword. The man thought it was over, for it was quite a blow. It could have hurt Jenny, but it had to hit for sure. However, this sword was able to stop Tian Shun, who recognized that an attack of this magnitude for a warrior of this man's level was pretty good. He is astonished. What confuses him, however, is how dare this man call himself a deity. After which her protagonist struck him a blow. Alan thought it was simply impossible. He put all his strength into that punch, and this guy doesn't have a scratch on him. And he's also suppressing his strength. It just can't be. He called himself an unshakable great knight who has divine blessing. So he can't lose to this petty beggar. The protagonist took off towards him. Tian Shun kindly inquired as the Alan just called him. He repeated his words again about the guy being a petty beggar, and as soon as he heard those words, he gave him a killing blow. The man didn't even expect to lose in this way. Tian Shun advised him to better watch his tongue in the next life. Afterward, Carl noticed Alan's corpse falling on top of him. The guy didn't understand. If Alan was dying, why drag him to the grave too? Whereupon he fell to the ground. The man's body began to shrink. The protagonist looked at this spectacle and realized that all of this was done for the sake of some sucker. And now this sucker is being crushed by the one he asked for help. But he deserved it. He went down to the ladder and inquired about his name. Palop introduced himself with a glittering sword, whereupon Tian Shun told him to attack. Well, of course the man didn't even think about attacking. He just decided to run away. The protagonist clearly didn't expect the man with the strange name to decide to run away. Obviously this kid is way out of their league. Alan and Jenny have already been defeated. Palop is not going to die here. In terms of combat power, he's not as good as those two. But in terms of speed, no one can beat him. Lightning swordsmanship and lightning speed was something he was sure of. This way, this guy wouldn't be able to do anything to him, no matter how strong he was. However, what he didn't expect at all was the main character flying near him, who asked if he didn't care at all about those friends who stayed there. And as soon as Tian Shun grabbed him, the Palapa asked him to wait. However, the guy decided to call in a lightning bolt. Afterward, he stood over the man's corpse. Tian Shun tried to hold back, but he was famously fried. Meanwhile, Catherine didn't understand what was wrong with her, and why it was so hot. Could it be because of what she was thinking about Zhong Tianshun? He and the fox must have traveled on their way by now. She wondered what the boy was doing now. Jenny's friends were done, and she was the only one left. The soaring dragon said that meant they could do whatever they wanted to her now. She asked me not to do it because she was a decent woman. Jenny even promised to do anything. She'd said it herself, and no one had forced her to do it. The guy handed her a piece of paper to sign, and then he wouldn't touch her. She saw that she had to give him 99,99,9999 spiritual stones. The girl inquired where she even got that kind of money from. The protagonist mentioned that there are other great families. Soaring Dragon noticed that it seems her son was still breathing. Whether or not to sign it was up to her. She only sighed and agreed to sign. Even though she'd signed that piece of paper and the guy hadn't even untied it. She'd never met anyone so insolent in her life. She was already close to Carl and would come to him soon. Mom won't let him die. However, a woman appeared in front of her who felt that there was an incredible flow of spiritual energy coming from here. She inquired as to the whereabouts of this immortal. Jenny didn't understand what kind of energy or cultivator this woman was talking about. She'd better not talk nonsense and untie her as soon as possible. It won't be long before her son can't be helped. She felt the echoes of that aura emanating from this woman. And that interesting look must be his doing. She wondered where he was. Jenny wondered if this guy was the cultivator she was talking about. She wondered why she was looking for him, since this guy was incredibly strong. The woman stated that she wanted to kill him, after which she reported that the bastard had gone east. If she went after him now, she might still be able to catch up. The demoness didn't even expect that guy to walk away, leaving live witnesses. Jenny asked how she could leave so easily. Then she asked for help. Why was she so lucky to get rude people today? Suddenly she noticed a huge shadow. Jenny wondered what it was, and this was a summoned huge rock. Then she brought the stone down on the remaining humans. Because it's a battle, violence is part of it. Kind-hearted and soft cultivators will not compete with it. Foxy noticed he was looking at that receipt the whole way. The guy was happy to receive 99999 spirit stones. Once they sorted out the magical artifacts, he would be the one to go straight back to town to get his money. The aura in this world is already polluted with demonic energy. Only from spiritual stones can he draw pure spiritual energy. No wonder this guy is not that fond of money. Still, spiritual stones are the source of his energy. The lad also remembered that they had been on the road for quite some time now, and for his heart must be tired. It was already getting evening, so they could look for a place for the fox to spend the night. They must rely on the perception of the fox when searching for the Xuan Tian treasure. Therefore, she must be in formation. She was only embarrassed at the thought of them spending the night together. His Qianqiu mirror is perfect for this purpose. The fox hasn't had a chance to go there yet, so they'll spend the night there tonight. In the mirror, the vixen didn't understand what was wrong with her today. She felt restless and so heavy that she couldn't even sleep. That guy's pretty simple, because he's not interested in anything but money. Wasn't it just yesterday, when he and Catherine were bashing in the same room, that he too had been so nonchalant? Baiting couldn't believe that she had even thought of something like this. She realized that she couldn't stay here. Otherwise these thoughts would continue to fill her head. The fox couldn't sleep anyway, so she decided to get some fresh air. She walked out of the mirror, thinking that what happened between Catherine and Tian Shun was completely her fault. Therefore, she shouldn't have such feelings. Besides, she is just relying on his spiritual power for the sake of her survival. Suddenly, she noticed a huge rock that was flying straight at her. Fortunately, she was able to slip away from him. Foxy wondered who had dared to attack her sneakily. She wondered if it was those pesky boys from the Ferno. Suddenly, more stone golems appeared in front of her, and she just wanted to go for a walk. Vixen was able to dodge that punch, after which she used the purple flame. The flames hit the two golems directly. She went down to the ground and asked who was even bothering to play these silly games. Let him show himself. A demon appeared behind her and responded to her call. Baiching immediately attacked her with purple flames, not realizing when she had managed to get behind her. She didn't even feel her aura. The woman said that she was following a trail of spiritual energy, and here all the traces were broken. And then she saw this little fox appear out of nowhere. There's a huge amount of spiritual energy emanating from her. Could she be the cultivator from the Valley of Ghosts? Thanks to the words about the cultivator from Ghost Valley, the fox realized that she came here because of Zhong Tianshun. And since she had never met the protagonist, we could try to trick her. She decided to take on the identity of the main character. Also wondered who this woman was and why she was tracking her all the way. And since she knows about cultivating immortals, then she should understand how powerful it is. Listening to these words, the woman realized that she had found the right person. She introduced herself as an obsidian princess who had crossed over at the behest of a demon god to take her life. She attacked with the words that it was time for an immortal cultivator to die. The vixen could do nothing to counter this blow, after which she was whisked right back to the mountain. The obsidian princess is much stronger than those Ferno people. In a fair confrontation, Baiching would not be able to be her opponent. The obsidian princess couldn't believe that one hit was more than enough. This girl is weaker than she first thought. Perhaps it was because previous battles with those at S level had consumed too much spiritual energy, and now she was facing an opponent who was much stronger than her. She was really unlucky. Bai Qing appeared behind her, not even thinking about the fact that with just a few stones, she wanted to kill her. She seemed to be looking down on her. Suddenly she felt the witch's energy. She didn't understand at all when the obsidian princess had time to do this. She was then thrown to the ground. The princess revealed that her left hand is used to control whatever object she focuses on. This ability was granted to her by the demon god. The vixen has no way to escape his grip. Unless you count the fate of the demon god, she killed the obsidian princess's favorite gargoyle in the Valley of Ghosts. Public or private, she should finish her off here. Still, dying at the hands of demons was the kind of fate that all immortal cultivators couldn't avoid. Bai Qing stated that she had more to say. The obsidian princess mentioned that it was too late to ask for mercy. The fox wondered if the demon god the princess was talking about had died during the battle between the immortals and the demons. The demons had already become a piece of loose sand, so she didn't understand why the princess still wanted to return. She thought the prophecy that the demon god would die at the hands of a cultivator was simply ridiculous. The demon god is reborn. If he finds the magic weapon, then he can return to the top. Then the demon god will be able to rule the world and unite all three worlds. Fox thanked her for the information. Now at least she knew who the enemy of Zhong Tianshun was. The obsidian princess asked which Zhong Tianshun she was referring to. Bai Qing said that she was not her opponent. However, she would not lose to the obsidian princess either, because she has a special experience with women. The obsidian princess didn't understand what other tricks she wanted to do at this time. She succumbed to illusions. In the illusion, the demon god thanked the obsidian princess for allowing him to recover the cube through her efforts, so he told her to ask for whatever she wanted as a reward. The princess explained that it was the responsibility of her subordinate to help the god retrieve the magical weapon, and as long as she can serve the demon god, she will be content. She dare not ask for a reward. The demon god mentioned that her thoughts can't be hidden for a long time now. He knows what she wants. He offered the princess to be his woman. Isn't that what she wanted? The obsidian princess wondered if she was qualified to be his woman. The demon god pulled the princess right up to him, asking if she wasn't going to obey his command. All he wants is her. He suggested starting the ceremony right now to become one through a love ritual. She was already guessing what kind of love ritual the demon god was talking about. If this is the same ceremony the demon god spoke of, isn't this too fast a progression for them? She needs time to prepare. She asked me to just wait. That's not possible there. She was very uncomfortable doing such a thing in the demon temple. It was better to at least go to the bedroom. Bai Qing didn't expect at all that she would have feelings for that guy. But that was the power of her charm. Anyone who falls for this trick will have their deepest desire activated. They will be immersed in the world of pleasure and will not be able to get out of it until they have completely mastered their carnal desires. She will have the last laugh in this battle. However, the obsidian princess pierced her. The fox didn't understand at all how this girl was able to dispel her charms of enchantment. The obsidian princess explained that pain was the easiest way to develop an illusion. The obsidian princess pulled her weapon away from the fox, and it fell to the ground. She also mentioned that her charms were truly amazing. It was even a pity to get out of this dream world. She had simply underestimated the demon god's charms. Sooner or later, he will become the lord of the entire world. He is the one on whom the obsidian princess pins her incredible hopes. Therefore, she will not allow anyone to desecrate it. Bai Qing had slept for so long, so it wouldn't be easy to revive again. It seems like it's really over this time. However, she can't die here. After which, she screamed for Zhong Tianshun to save her. And as soon as the huge stone approached the fox, the protagonist chopped it into 2 pieces. He mentioned that it's pretty dangerous to go out alone in the middle of the night. Next time, have him bring him along. She started crying and called Tian Shun an idiot. Why couldn't he have come a little earlier? He advised her to stop crying. He had come after all. The obsidian princess couldn't believe how such a thing was possible. Tian Shun wondered what was wrong with her. She simply couldn't believe her eyes. For the demon god and this guy were absolutely identical. She couldn't believe in such a thing at all. After all, the demon god was a creature of noble blood. But she shouldn't dwell on it. It must be some bad effects of the spell. The obsidian princess was perplexed that someone was able to do something like that to that woman. But it was definitely clear to her now. It was his handwriting. He gives off an incredibly intense and spiritual energy. This guy is the one she has to kill. He noticed demonic magic kicking up dust. The princess explained that it wasn't that simple. and now she would make him regret his words. She used her technique called Raging Wind, and her technique hit it right on target. Countless rocks and debris would cut his flesh like a razor. There's no way for him to dodge it. In just a moment, there would be nothing left of him. The guy won't even get a chance to ask for mercy. A little while later, she was glad it was finally over. There shouldn't be anything left of that guy alive. However, she saw a golden shield there. Tian Shun heard the way this girl mentioned that she had met Jenny, so he asked how she was now, and whether she had made it home. She hadn't expected this attack to work on him at all. The main character attacked her and mentioned that he was talking to her. Did she not hear him? This attack pierced through the obsidian princess. She couldn't understand at all how he could be so strong. Just one strike, and she was already in such a state. Could this be the true power of a cultivator? He decided to ask again how Jenny was doing. The obsidian princess wondered why he cared about her so much. Aren't they enemies? Afterward, she said she killed that girl. It was only afterward that she noticed that for some reason his aura had changed drastically. She could sense the murderous intent emanating from him. Did she say no? The protagonist wondered again who she had killed there. The obsidian princess's body began to unconsciously stagger backwards. Is this really the purest death intent? It's shivering. The strength of his suppression is just beyond her imagination. She can't even breathe in front of this guy. Why does he care so much about this Jenny? Could there have been a secret romantic connection between them? The whip used to bind that woman is the best proof of that. Even if she killed his woman, so what? That man can't scare her. She would never let anyone see her like that again. Besides, the girl had not yet accomplished her mission. A level 5 monster who is also a subordinate of the king. Obsidian Obistine has come to take his life at the behest of the demon god. She will put all her power into this strike and show her strongest spell. This will be the decisive blow in this fight. The protagonist noticed the energy gathering somewhere in the clouds, and he realized what it wanted to do. She used a technique called meteor shower. Seeing all this, the protagonist recognized that it was really incredible. In front of him, and the very real meteorite. But even so, what can a meteorite do to him? The soaring dragon just ate that huge meteorite, after which he returned to the protagonist. He only sighed. It seems that a mere level 5 demon who wants to take away Tian Shun's life is simply overestimating his capabilities. Obistine realized that she had lost, and now it was over. The power of the cultivator is so terrifying. No wonder the demon god was prophesied to die at his hands. Would he really lose? She pushed those thoughts away from her, for that was simply impossible. The demon god would never lose to a man like him. Tian Shun had one last question for her. The obsidian princess assumed that he wanted to ask about the demon god. However, she wouldn't say anything. However, the guy wasn't going to ask about something so useless. Since Obistine killed Jenny, that promissory note is now null and void. So he asked if she was going to pay him back those 9999999 spirit stones. She replied that she had no money, so she would not be able to repay this debt. What a shame, because that wasn't the answer he wanted to hear. He'd told the mirror he needed the demon's clothes and equipment, whereupon the mirror absorbed all that its master had commanded it to do. There's not much to be gained from that. He wondered how many noble families he would have to blackmail to make up for his losses. She called him the ultimate pervert. Since she lost, she could be killed. But why would this guy even want her clothes? Does he want her body? She won't let that happen. Her soul and body belong to the demon god. The protagonist replied that she imagines too much. He doesn't care if she is a man or a woman. If she is a demon, then Tian Shun should destroy her. She didn't even realize when the thing appeared beside her. After that, the guy used the law of 5 thunderstorms to commit murder. That was a pretty powerful attack from him. All that was left of the obsidian princess was a level 5 demonic core demon. He decided to give this core to the hovering dragon. The dragon thanked him for the gesture. He turned back to the vixen, talking about dealing with that demon. However, the fox was in a terrible state. Guy tried to bring her to her senses, talking about how she can't die. He still hopes that she will help him find the artifacts of the Xuan Tian clan. He kept slapping her face, forgiving the vixen for not sleeping. She stopped his hand, saying that if he kept hitting her like that, she would really die. He was glad she was awake, after which he picked her up in his arms and was ready to carry her to the doctor. She asked me to let her go. Besides, she doesn't need a doctor. Bai Qing would be able to recover if she fed off his spiritual energy. The guy was surprised that even serious wounds could be tended to in this way. It would be nice to find a hot spring, because that would increase the efficiency of absorption. Just like when they first met. Since she means that they should take a place bath, it will be fine. They may not have found any hot springs, but a lake will do in a pinch. But the boy had his doubts about whether it was necessary to strip so much. Better to leave at least the acceptable minimum of clothing. The vixen apologized, for she just needed to heal her wounds. He also asked why she doesn't take her clothes off. It's not fair. Bai Qing replied that there was no need for her to undress, because she would already be able to absorb the spiritual energy. He could now begin to radiate it. He inquired if this is how he is supposed to do all of this. She was surprised that he started emitting such a huge stream of energy. In that case, it was understandable how he was able to defeat that demon. His strength was simply unbelievable. Such a powerful energy envelops her entire body that it's even intoxicating. The pain slowly fades into the background. I can't believe he has such an incredible aura. There's no way she can miss it. She dove underwater with him. Everything wasn't enough for the vixen. She needed so much more. After which she surfaced and was already normal. Her body had fully recovered. Tian Shun tried to cough and asked if she was really trying to kill him. The girl apologized for that. His energy is incredibly seductive, so she couldn't resist. The next day, they were already flying on the soaring dragon. Since the dragon had eaten the demonic core, it was time to work hard for it. The soaring dragon knew that free cheese only comes with a mousetrap. He also wondered if the vixen should stay so close to him. She noted that it was so high up here, and it was very scary. Suddenly, she felt the aura of the artifact. Perhaps this was one of the treasures they were looking for. The main character's eyes immediately all lit up as soon as he heard about it. The elf princess, whose name is Aurora, level equals B, asked why these people are after her. What do they want to get from her? You don't see many elves these days. If you catch her and sell her on the black market, you can make a lot of money. The band of wild bandits will be rich. Since they want to kidnap the Aurora, she will now consider these people her enemies. She won't let them do it. She used the elf's call and summoned the moon butterflies. They clearly didn't count the insects as a normal attack. However, they were in their way. After that, the girl used the moon curse. The two men became old men. They started crying, because now no one would look at them like that. The man asked for everything back. However, it's all their fault. If they attack the elves, let them think of the consequences beforehand. 2 more humans arrived there and saw the real magic of the elves. Jenna thought it was just debuff magic. Nothing unusual about it. Mark replied that it was quite good for an elf. But she had a long way to go to a band of wild brigands. Jenna has decided to propose to her. She can show her the way to the elf village, and they won't kill her after Togo. However, she wouldn't fall for it. Since they look down on elf magic, she'll make them pay for it. Jenna advised her to no longer use a skill her opponent already knew about. No matter how powerful magic was, if it couldn't touch the opponent, it was nothing. After that, she showed the real magic. Her in a whirlwind like a sharp blade destroying everything in its path. It was only moments before Aurora ceased all resistance. This was the first time Aurora had ever left the village and already faced such powerful opponents. Her luck had clearly deserted her. Perhaps she should use this technique. However, she didn't need to do anything. She didn't understand what was happening or why the hurricane had dissipated. Tian Shun inquired if it was here. The vixen replied that it was. She told her that the aura about the treasure was coming from that elf woman. Aurora thought that all this was not good because even those strange guys appeared. Not that she was wearing a lot of clothes. However, the guy wondered where she was able to hide the artifact. Could it be that's where the artifacts are hidden? Jenna was angry that her whirlwind just vanished into thin air. Mark replied that the two had completely ignored the 2 of them, who are the best masters in a gang of wild outlaws. He decided to use a giant shiny sword to show what their gang's elite could do. She didn't understand how people dared to disparage magic. The girl used a frenzied tornado. The 2 of them decided to attack the bastard. These people were beginning to get on his nerves, for they still couldn't shut their mouths. Can't they see he's talking to a girl? I guess their mom didn't teach them as kids not to interrupt adults. They're so annoying. After which these guys fell to the ground. The protagonist ordered all outsiders to get out of here quickly. He's already very busy. Aurora couldn't believe that it was over. But after all, those 2 are extremely strong. Foxy replied that there was something else important. Sure enough, he summoned a mirror and told them to gather all their equipment and clothing. After that, the mirror began to pull everything into itself. Something important. This seems to be about undressing. He had already undressed the others, and now it seemed to be her turn. He immediately turned his attention to her. She begged not to undress her because there wasn't even anything to see. Aurora begged to be let go. It was the first time she had left the village, and she didn't understand anything. Tian Shun wasn't even going to undress her. He's a decent person after all. After which, the girl revealed that she really didn't have such a valuable item as the Xuan Tian artifact. However, the vixen can sense the aura of this artifact from him. There could be no mistake. She asked the Aurora to think again. Perhaps she had eaten something strange. The girl told her that the elves all drink from a magical source. The magical spring is living water. The elders say that it is because of this source that their clan was born. You need to drink some living water, and any imperfections will leave the body. The skin will become nourished and velvety. This water also lifts the mood, and when the elves reach a certain age, they go to bathe in the spring. Anyone who bathes will give birth to a little elf. So this spring is sacred to the whole clan. Foxy thought it must have something to do with the artifact. She drank water from the spring, so she could feel the aura of the artifact. And the guy thought that this spring water would be a good buy. In fact, he was the reason she came out of the woods in the first place. A few months ago, the monster had occupied their source. This monster does terrible things. It attacks with strange tentacles. And if they capture the elf, it's simply impossible to fight any further. It's the sworn enemy of her clan. Aurora made her way out of the village to find those who could help deal with this monster. These two are incredibly strong, so she offered to help the elves who needed help. The protagonist replied that they would save everyone. And the vixen saw the guy's determination, and assumed that he had already thought of new schemes to earn money. Such a precious source of life this monster definitely cheapens. It was surprising that the elf village was in such a gloomy place. Aurora told them that it was for their protection. Once they went deep inside, they would find the elf village immediately. Foxy asked why she was looking at Zhong Tianshun the whole way. The girl was embarrassed, saying that she wasn't doing it on purpose. She's just never been this close to a man. Elves have never seen a man. Therefore, if Tian Shun entered the village like this, all the general attention would be drawn to him. She suggested that he change his clothes. Foxy asked if she wanted to dress him in women's dresses. He immediately pictured himself in a woman's dress. I mean, he agreed to help, so there's no need to sneak around. The guy is who he is. And if the elves like to stare, let them stare. After which they came to the village of the elves. The views here are really beautiful. The girls greeted the Aurora princess, and also wondered who the two were. Aurora revealed that these two are her saviors. They were also here to help. I can see why that man over there is so different from them. Plus, he's flat-chested. The girls thought he was undernourished. The guy started getting angry talking about being a man. It's natural for him to be flat-chested. They were immediately embarrassed when they recognized it. Afterward, the girls shouted that the princess had returned with a man. She knew there would be riots. The other girls immediately ran over. They really wanted to see what this legendary man really looked like. It's a once-in-a-century event, so she certainly can't miss it. A man really does look like that, unlike the elves. They thought men were amazing creatures. Just looking at them makes you blush. They even wanted to let him live in the village with them. The protagonist was only embarrassed. Fox couldn't believe he was still popular. He realized that he had been rushed. These are truly outstanding events. The soaring dragon thought that this guy intentionally brought her to such a nice place. And the protagonist wondered what the dragon was doing here. Of course he's here to see these beautiful maidens. This place is a paradise. The girls noticed something big and long sticking out of the man's body. Perhaps this is a unique ability of men. He offered the girls a ride on him. He's so strong he could ride them all. The elfess noticed that the thing looked magnificent and majestic. Could it really even be possible to ride it? Men have so many things to marvel at that they still have a lot to learn. Tian Shun asked if he kills this soaring dragon, will the dragon sword disappear? Bai Qing thinks that it will. Aurora's sister came to them. The girl apologized for bringing the man without her permission. No human had set foot in Elven territory for 5,000 years. The elf queen, Ecchi, couldn't believe that this clan taboo had been broken today. But since they are here to help the elves, she has nothing against it. Aurora knew that her sister would be the smartest among all of them. Tian Shun noticed that her sister didn't look very serious. She was even drooling at him. Lovey has offered to show the Aurora a visitor to the village. She is going to talk to this man about how to bring the Fountain of Life back. She then informed the man that he was coming with her. It seemed to Foxy that this queen had purposely gone alone with him. She wondered if she was going to accidentally do something to Zhong Tianshun. The protagonist replied that there was no need to discuss tactics. Let him rather take him to the source, and they would destroy the beast's lair. Lovey remarked that this monster was very difficult to deal with. They will have to go to her room and discuss everything. He's so young, there's no need to be in such a hurry. He's got an incredible amount of fire in him. There were too many people on the street now, which made her long to endure. And now, it was just the two of them. Now she had what she wanted. And they could finally talk about bringing back the Fountain of Life. However, she didn't want to rush. They had more important things to do after all. He has too much fire in him so he can let off all his steam on her. She doesn't know why, but when she saw him, she's been in love ever since. Her little heart beats frantically, and it's as if they were made for each other. So she didn't want to waste any time. Lovey was sure he couldn't wait either. Tian Shun only remained silent. The Elf Queen wondered why he wasn't doing anything. Perhaps he prefers to be passive. In that case, she'll do it all herself. He has such exquisite musculature like a work of art. It's intoxicatingly stunning. It's the only one lucky enough to enjoy such a spectacle. She just can't wait, so she decided to get started. However, he stopped her and told her that she was the most ordinary woman of easy behavior. She was surprised that he didn't want to enjoy himself, after which the guy reclined her right back to the bed. What good would that do? He's a serious man. He doesn't have time for this. Suddenly the queen's words made him stop. She said to hit her again. From his going until it felt so good to eat. She begged to keep going because she didn't want to stop. Let him hit her with everything he had. She loved it so much. It's the first time he's ever heard anyone ask for a punch. She's a perv too. The Elf Queen said not to say that. This is the first time she's ever felt this kind of excitement. They are elves and so beautiful, yet they must stay here, in this little village for the rest of their lives, to guard the source of life. And there is no right to enjoy man's love at all because of the Fountain of Life. She's trapped. Here she wants to see the outside world too. But as a queen, she has a duty to protect her people. The protagonist replied that she did look too pathetic, and if he feels sorry for her, let him help her. He's the only one who can comfort her right now. However, Tian Shun was unwilling to do so. Suddenly, she revealed a very interesting thing. If the guy behaves himself, this topaz will be his. The girl asked if he now agreed. The guy replied that of course he did. He was really energized. Meanwhile, the girls were looking at a big and long thing that turned out to be a large sword. They had no idea that such amazing things existed. He could, after all, become any human or animal who could touch the sword. He can even become a ghostly servant succubus. Even level 5 monsters are obsidian princesses. He suggested that these girls go to a party together. However, the girls admitted that it was not very fun with him, and they wanted to bathe together with the white-haired man. Foxy was ashamed of the green dragon. She also wondered how Zhong Tianshun was doing with the Elf Queen. A huge aura is spilling out of this room. There was some sort of popping sound as she did so. She was very curious as to what was going on there that was so interesting. Perhaps they were fighting, and the queen thus wanted to check it out. There is some exciting battle going on in this tiny room. She even dared to become Zhong Tianshun's rival. The Elf Queen must have great power. A wild bandit camp. They started complaining to the captain about how it was a damn shame, since their squad had been the strongest in the area for years. The brothers had never been so angry, and that bastard who beat them up is very violent. They just have to respond to that. They begged to protect the dignity of the Thieves Guild and chop that bastard to pieces. The leader of the wild brigands, Orcus, asked, "But what can you do since you have to act normal?" He also asked if they saw anything wild about themselves. Jenna told me it wasn't their fault at all. That man was just really violent. Not only did he hit them, but he took her gear. Even her favorite leopard print leather jacket was taken. This man had seen her entire body. She began to call him the ultimate pervert. If he didn't die, she would be dishonored. Jenna is a flower about wild thieves. He'd never seen her naked, even as captain, and now some stranger had undressed her. She reported that the lowlife bastard had now gone to the elves, and it was his dream to go to the village of the elves. He jumped from the tree, telling the boys that they were going to go to kill that man. Elf trees. Aurora burst in on them, reporting that something was wrong here. A large number of intruders had been discovered. The bandits followed her trail and found their way into the forest, and they had almost reached the village. But she had not expected to find them doing so. The girl was embarrassed, after which she apologized and told them to continue, closing the door behind them. Lovey explains to her sister that she's just testing to see how strong this person really is. It's an exchange of experience. Orcus told the boys that they had come here to avenge Jenna's shame, so let them not be confused by the beauty of the elves. Suddenly, the legendary elves appeared in front of them. The girl didn't understand why those men had such a big root on their heads. Everyone's hair is really weird. It doesn't make her heart beat faster at all. If these intruders take even one more step, Let them not be blamed for being rude. Orcus realized that this sight was really something. He was especially attracted to their legs. The elves truly lived up to their name. He offered the boys to take them to his camp. The man would torture them himself. Jenna didn't understand why what this guy was saying seemed strange to her. Hadn't the captain come here to avenge her? They immediately attacked the elven women. The elf queen appeared there, wondering how these vile creatures dared to beat her subjects, after which she used a technique called moonrise. Thus, she was able to beat these guys. Bastards like them should just die. Orcus was fine. He still blushed at the sight of the elf queen. She informed them that if the boys left, the queen would consider keeping them alive. The thief leaders realized that this girl was simply beautiful. Even her scolding is so charming. This is what a real elven girl looks like in his imagination. It's the same as stealing a book from his collection. They were approached by Bai Qing, Aurora, and Tian Shun, who saw several familiar faces. Could it be that Jenna had come to take revenge on him? Or maybe she thinks she gave him too little gear, and wants more people to give up their gear. Jenna reported that it was that guy who did that to her. And he even stole Mark's little brother's giant lightsaber. Orcus reports that this guy did what he wanted to do first, and he can't accept that. It was all supposed to belong to him, so he's gonna tear this guy apart. However, the blow was dealt to him by the elf queen, who wondered if such a bug could touch that guy. Still, this girl is very strong. He wondered if there was an S-class among elves. Tian Shun asked the girl what she was doing. It's insulting him, so he'll do it himself. Besides, he has a lot of hair, and it's better to shave them off. Lovey explained that this man is someone the elf queen herself is in love with. How could she allow someone to attack him? Its miraculous power should not be wasted on such trash. She thinks it should be used for something more worthy, like spanking her. It was now clear to everyone that this elf queen was just a pervert. Orcus is a wild and fierce man who will not waver before her, but she has fallen in love with this lecherous devil. In the elf village, one man, namely Zhong Tianshun, would suffice. So she ordered the elf warriors to deal with these guys, have them take these guys back to where they came from. They immediately wanted to attack them on the queen's orders. Since these elves were so careless, he would show no mercy. He suggested the boys gather a few with him. The bandits also prepared to attack. The elfess was able to deal with the two guys. Jenna captured the elves in her vortex of flame. Aurora also joined the battle, and against the bandit leader came the elf queen, who was displeased that he had prevented her and Zhong Tianshun because of this attack. They were so close and could have done so much. This person is truly despicable. It was his fault for spoiling her pleasure. The man has committed an unforgivable crime. Orcus felt she needed to find a real man for his charms to wear off. He thought he was better than pulling a shun. Was it because he was a little late that the elf queen was now treating him like this? However, this guy is conditional dust compared to the protagonist. Therefore, she must get rid of this annoying insect as soon as possible. Then she can move on faster, spending time with Zhong Tianshun. She sent a beam of light at him, wishing death upon the man. The boy thought she must be joking and wondered who she thought he was. He was the leader of the thieves' camp. He tried to stop this destructive attack. Luckily he did, because they're both of the same class. There's no telling who else will win this fight. Blind confidence is not a good thing. However, the man argued that it wasn't blind confidence at all. She would see it for herself. After that, he used a technique called Wild Fist. Even though it is a high-level skill, however, it won't work against her. She just shattered all those rocks. All mages have an Achilles heel. The fear of hand-to-hand combat face-to-face. The strike was just a distraction to get closer to this queen. Then it would be defenseless. He swung around, thinking about the fact that she had lost in this fight. The man used a boar's growl, after which this blow struck the elf queen. She started coughing up blood, screaming that she was dying. However, afterward, she only laughed at the fact that the man had fallen for it. After which, she turned into a doll. Did he really think mages couldn't do close combat? He didn't understand where her voice was coming from. Unfortunately, she's the exception. The elf queen used the moonwheel sacred light dance. Against this blow, he could not stand. Even if they have the same rank, there's still a difference between strong and weak. It is, after all, only and only up to the S-class threshold. The queen, on the other hand, is at the peak of the same rank. This man is not even her equal. She informed all the fucking cockroaches that she had already defeated their leader. They have 5 seconds to disappear from her sight. The queen has no time to waste on bugs like them. If they interfere with her before meeting Zhong Tianshun, none of them will survive. They immediately started running away, because what was the point of having a leader who lost? She turned to her sister, saying that their girls were injured. So she asked that Aurora heal them with the help of the shimmering butterfly. The girl did her sister's bidding. After the healing, shimmering butterfly, her body was like fluff for a moment. It feels like there is a constant stream of heat flowing through it. It doesn't hurt anymore, which is very pleasant. She then turned to the protagonist, suggesting that she return to the room and continue. However, she didn't understand when these two had managed to disappear anywhere at all. It's a good thing he's fast, or Orcus wouldn't have had time to dodge. He can't even believe that there is an individual at the peak of S level among the elves. It seems like they are really but unlucky today. However, the captain need not be discouraged. This failure is like nothing, for they were able to figure out the route of which elf village. The new slaves from the camp have not yet had time to leave. If they return safely, they will sell the slaves. You can then go to the black market and hire some S-level or higher fighters. Afterwards, they will return for revenge. He was confident that they could take over the elf's village and make them all bow down to them. However, Zhong Tianshun was already in front of them and said that a thief is a thief. It is true that a dog cannot stop eating what it is not allowed to eat. The elf queen gave them a chance, and yet they even have the nerve to think such a thing. They should be ashamed of themselves. They came after the main character in the village, and this gang has come to take revenge on him. So he can't just stand by and watch. He recognized that this guy had pride. However, how dare he act so arrogantly in front of Orcus? Does he think that since the leader couldn't defeat the queen, he can't defeat this guy either? After which, he immediately decided to attack Tian Shun, saying that it was his own fault. The protagonist slapped him, not realizing who he was pretending to be. Did Tian Shun allow him to do that? Orcus admitted that he had been too careless. This guy is really something. Looks like defeating Mark and Jenna wasn't a fluke. He'd have to come up with something real to deal with him too. Was he in so much pain because he's hurt? He can't even tell what this guy is doing. However, he must defeat him by any means necessary. He will show the best techniques of the strongest man in Wild Thieves. However, before he could do anything, he was already defeated by the main character, saying that he was too weak. And the weak die. The man didn't understand at all how this was possible. Others watched with horror and incomprehension as well. The protagonist stated that they are all just gnats, so let them all attack together. He threw his sword at them. After that, he began to deal with the guy's opponents with ease. Tian Shun wanted the fox to go with him to the camp of those thieves. Bai Qing wondered if he wanted to free the captured slaves. Not only did he want to free the slaves, but he also wanted to pocket all that stolen money for himself. She was in such a hurry that she fell behind the group. She wondered if she was lost, and for some reason she began to feel something strange. Suddenly she was attacked by tentacles. Jenna didn't understand at all what was going on or what it was. It's so tight. The creature has her so gripped that she can't even move and it's hard to breathe. Why does she always get such nasty enemies? How could such a monster even appear in this place? It was the monster who had picked up on the fact that this girl looked very appetizing. It was too embarrassing to fall into the tentacles of this monster. Her body was becoming increasingly weak. She simply couldn't resist it. She can only watch as these tentacles move all over her body. The monster noticed that she was unconscious, so he decided to eat her. After eating the girl, he felt the sensation just great with satiety. It was a great honor for her to be a part of his body. After that, the tentacle monster mimic Wraith rank 5 decided to try on this look, just like his type. The queen noticed there were unusual energy fluctuations. Isn't that near the fountain of life? Perhaps the protagonist ran to the source in a hurry. In her head, she began to imagine this monster grabbing Tian Shun. She decided to go to save him. However, Aurora felt that they had better prepare themselves before going there. After all, this monster is their natural enemy, and it is a strong one. However, she doesn't care, she just wants to save her man. The other elves also wanted to save the man. Nothing should happen to this man. They entered the woods and began calling out to the man, asking where he was. Lovey also called out to Tian Shun. She came here to save him. If he didn't come out, she would worry about him. How would she be without sharing the experience with him? She really wanted to do it again. Tentacles came up to her from behind and grabbed her. There were also some monster cubs there who had learned that this woman was the elf queen. If they sat this woman down, they could immediately break through to the 5th rank. She wondered if they really wanted to overpower her with such small tentacles. Wasn't that funny? She made quick work of those cubs. These gnats are too weak. However, it was difficult for others to deal with these cubs because there were too many of them here. If they continued like this, they would not succeed. Once these tentacles formed, it would be difficult for her to free herself. However, she did not want to be eaten by this slimy tentacle monster. It looks like she was too hasty, and now he is surrounded by those tentacles. But Zhong Tianshun is the one she brought to the village. If he's in danger, she just has to save him. Those cubs said it was useless to resist. This is Micah territory. They intended to take over their village soon, and then these elves will become their livestock. These cubs were already presenting themselves with the guises of elves. However, the Elf Queen has decided to crush their dreams. Lovey reported that they hadn't yet settled old scores for taking over the Fountain of Life, and now they're already staring at the elf village. However, they began to deny her words. Of course, the Elf Queen didn't believe them. She gave them a good roasting. Aurora apologized for them slowing her sister down. Still, they had become a burden to her when the Queen thought of him most. However, the Elf Queen did not see them as a burden at all. It was her duty to protect her subjects, but deep down, she still thinks that guy is more important. It's weird, but it feels like it's meant to be. A tentacle monster arrived, not even surprised that so many of his children were dead. So the Elf Queen herself is here. She showed great enthusiasm. Is it really an Elven campaign? The Queen thought that this monster was fighting Tian Shun because of the energy fluctuations. It turns out that this monster had just taken over an unpleasant body. This is a waste of time. She also has one piece of advice for you. They must watch their words when they speak to the Queen. After all, if she gets angry, it will turn them into fried octopus. She sent a very devastating attack at that monster, much stronger than the last time, and he needs to do the right thing to survive. The monster activated a protective sphere. The backlash was very strong. If it wasn't for the monster's regeneration, it would be in trouble. The monster wondered how his words had managed to anger the Queen at all. Apparently, he was wrong. Lovey inquired of the inferior organism what it knew of love. The tentacle monster believed that only the weak needed love, and mimics don't need it at all. He just needs to be aware of the weakness of his enemies. After which he spat some kind of green liquid on her. The Queen started to get even more angry and asked if that was his trump card. And also, what is the good of this sticky liquid? The tentacle monster explained that there would be a price to pay for underestimating it. This is an unusual slime. It's a trick he specifically designed to deal with the elves. It dissolves their clothes. Her clothes did begin to dissolve. All the Queen could think about was the fact that her stockings were beginning to dissolve. The Tentacle Clan's techniques are really unpleasant. That shameful look of hers now prevents the protagonist from seeing her. It's a shame. The monster noticed that she was so embarrassed that she was blushing and shaking. It wouldn't take a minute for her clothes to dissolve. No woman could be shameless enough to fight naked. The elf doesn't stand a chance of winning. This monster decided to help some more. Then she hated the fact that she wasn't too much of a sticky mess. Her clothes were starting to slowly eat away too. The other elves noticed that their bodies began to shake. How could one even fight when they were restrained by something like this? He's just trying his luck or he can't take it anymore. He also doesn't want to waste his time. Let the existence of the elves become legendary today. He sent his tentacle at the girls. Aurora didn't understand how she should confront this. The Elf Queen engaged the sacred light dance of the moon wheel to cut those tentacles. Aurora would find herself beginning to marvel at the true colors of the Elf Queen. The tentacle monster didn't understand why she was still fighting calmly. According to the information he had gathered and his previous experience with elves, they were a race of naive and extremely shy humans. There was no way she could withstand this attack. Before, when the monster had fought her, this had never happened before. What she had to endure during this time. Lovey seemed to notice that he was very surprised. It's a despicable tactic, used to be able to threaten her somewhat. But these are different times. After in-depth academic exchanges with Tian Shun, she has completely elevated herself. And this small stage no longer restricts her. She didn't care that the tentacles were wrapped around her. She also didn't care that her clothes were corroded with slime. It didn't hurt as much as the main character's hand that was slapping her again. It takes such courage to make a man feel uncomfortable. It was the most beautiful experience of her life. Even the monster was starting to get embarrassed, asking how she wasn't embarrassed to even talk about it. He called the Queen a disgrace to the entire nation of elves. Lovey wondered if he didn't like being beaten. Then she'd make him happy too. After which giant tentacles flew towards her. However, it won't work the second time. She calmly cut them open. Does this monster really want to match the protagonist with such a flimsy attack? He's not worthy of it. The one who will be able to please is the Pulshun. He found it unacceptable that this woman was too brash. What kind of man could ever drive an elf queen crazy? They didn't even know that Zhong Tianshun was already so close to the queen. They were very jealous. The girls also wanted to know what it was like to hold his hand. Such tricks don't work on her anymore. She can hold back now. Tonight she would put an end to this confrontation between the elves and the ugly nation of tentacles. she immediately moved to attack her enemy. He's at least a level 5 beast after all. And this wench is daring to look down on him. It's too trite, but her power is too great, so it's best to avoid direct confrontations. However, the elf queen didn't even think of retreating so easily. This nasty monster wouldn't be able to escape from her today. She started jumping through the trees. Meanwhile, at the wild bandit camp, these two freed the slaves who thought their new master had come. They would be very obedient, just sagged not to beat them. They are sold in the maid store for fun, to be a tool of income for the owner, or they sell them to princes and chiefs to use as toys. Or perhaps the owner wants to keep them around and gradually change them to suit his taste. The fox didn't understand why these fish were so crazy. What kind of torment they had gone through to become like that. She also wondered what the guy was going to do with them. Those rears must be worth a lot. She really hoped he wouldn't want to sell them. Tian Shun reported that they were now free, therefore they could go home. They couldn't believe their ears. Would their master really let them go home? He loves money, but he will not take such dishonestly earned money. They thanked the protagonist, saying they didn't care for his kindness, and today he is their new parent. In the future, if they meet the base, they will do everything to repay the master. After taking all the money from the band of robbers, the guy didn't seem to be completely satisfied. Fox wondered what was wrong and where he was looking. Did he really forget something important? The boy had indeed forgotten something important. It would be wasteful to leave such a huge camp just standing. So he offered to pick him up. If you couldn't believe he was really serious, that's telling. With his power, he separated this piece of land, then told the mirror to absorb it. Fountain of life. That's where the elf queen arrived. How dare they pollute an holy source of life? It's unforgivable. Tonight she's going to kill that monster. A tentacle monster appeared there, laughing with Togo that she contrived to kill it. This life source could give her a new life about the elf race. But this magic works on other female creatures as well. That's why the straight tentacle is ready to take this place at any cost. Those bastards have been watching them for a long time. That's right. With the fountain life, the tentacles can grow. One day, they will become the greatest demon clan in the world. The elves have such treasures, but they don't even know how to use them. It's just wasteful. Therefore, these treasures will belong to the tentacle clan. The queen explained that the fountain of life is not something that turns creatures into fertilization machines. It is the holy relic that brought the elves into existence 5,000 years ago. And it's the source of life that elves believe in. These superficial and vulgar beings will never get the source of life. The monster began to get angry, saying that the beliefs of the elves did not concern him. He ordered the cubs to come out and tear that arrogant woman right in front of him. A lot of cubs showed up there. All of them immediately pounced on the elf queen. Lovey used a sacred lunar barrier. That's why those tentacles couldn't reach her. The tentacle monster thought it was useless. With such a strong and intense attack, her barrier wouldn't last long. If the barrier breaks, she's finished. However, this monster seemed to misunderstand that. She explained that this barrier was not meant to protect it from its attacks. I thought she said she was going to kill him tonight. And she will. She summoned a huge magical formation. The tentacle monster couldn't have guessed what the elf queen was trying to do. Could this be the strongest elf magic ever? Now the elf queen can finally unleash her full power. The protagonist also noticed that the elf queen refused to lead him to the fountain of life, but is now fighting a tentacle monster while he's gone. Looks like it's time to go back. Lovey believed that if magic wasn't violent enough, it was pointless. She is the only elf here, and can work her magic with impunity. That monster is going to die today, just like she said it would, after which she attacked her opponent. In front of him, he could see a huge flash of light. The tentacle monster stated that he wasn't afraid of such things. Let him observe how he can block it. However, his tentacles were unable to block such incredible magic. He asked to stop, saying that they could work out a deal. However, it was already too late. The elf queen was unhurt by the powerful blow thanks to her shield. Aurora knew that the seal of the moon was the most destructive magic of the elves, but it is also very taxing on the power of the mind. When performing this trick, the caster falls into a state of extreme weakness. Whether or not her sister manages to win or not, she may be in the greatest danger right now. So she must get to her as soon as possible. There was a huge mark, catch, because she said she was going to kill him today. And today she won. Whereupon the girl began to fall. She was grabbed by the arm by the main character, who asked if she was okay. She could feel that intoxicating touch in him. There was no mistaking it. Her man had come. Tian Shun praised her. She was able to destroy a den of tentacle monsters all by herself. If she didn't have a deep academic exchange with the guy, There was no way she would be able to surpass those nasty monster moves. That's why all this thanks to pulling Xunyu. Fox asked if they had to stay in that position to talk. The Elf Queen asked what was wrong with that. I mean, she likes it. And she's very weak right now. She needs to hug the protagonist and get some rest to recover. But the surprise of the protagonist, and also began to embarrass himself. Lovey wondered how he was feeling now. Tian Shun replied that it wasn't bad. As soon as she defeated the tentacle monster, this guy showed up. It must be a gift from the moon god to the queen, after which she kissed him immediately on the lips. Baiqing didn't understand what this girl was doing. Doesn't this guy belong to her? That's where Aurora showed up, coming to save her sister. She was using too much magic after all. But it was only then that she noticed the two of them kissing. Looks like she's a little late to the party. Unfortunately, the tentacle monster was still alive. The 6th Togo-level magical beast, namely the huge tentacle monster matrix, reported that those damned elves were rejoicing too soon. And it's not over yet. This spell was supposed to exhaust the Elf Queen. Now it was his turn to attack. Aurora noticed that it was a level 6 beast. Could it really be the real tentacle boss? The vixen also sensed a powerful demonic aura. This demonic beast is unusual. The queen had to be distracted by a pain in the ass. And why is she always getting in the way? The queen is not satisfied? Lovey wondered how dare he interfere with her time. However, she was stopped by the protagonist. The girl is tired, so he'll take care of the guy himself. She really liked Tian Shun's masculinity. He even stood up for her. It's a legendary confession, just wonderful. She thought this man was in love with her. Meanwhile, the main character was thinking about something strange going on in her head. A level 6 monster can bitch when they flirt in his presence. But how dare this man fight him? Why does he show disrespect? He immediately wanted to kill him with his tentacles. However, those still tentacles stopped as soon as Tian Shun released his aura, after which he chopped the tentacles into small pieces. Tian Shun wondered if he didn't care about this monster at all. The tentacle monster began to scream in pain. Aurora didn't realize what the guy had just done. She didn't see anything at all. It's just amazing. The queen was becoming convinced that this was indeed the man she had been looking for so long. This is truly an outstanding sight. This fountain of life contains the treasure he seeks, and this monster is a terrible nuisance. So let him get the hell out of here. Swords appeared in the sky and immediately rushed towards the monster. He thought that it was only a weak spell, so he wasn't afraid of it. Let them all watch as he could block every sword. However, those swords began to chop his tentacles. He didn't understand how it happened or why this attack was so powerful. He's a level 6 monster after all. 1 in a million. However, it doesn't matter, as his regeneration abilities are unrivaled. Suddenly he noticed a guy flying up to him and asked him what else he wanted to do. Tian Shun declared that evil demons must be destroyed. The monster tried to negotiate with him. However, the protagonist was not even close to being in the mood to negotiate. He employed a technique called continuous wind thunder. This guy scared the monster to death after all, because he thought it was going to be some incredible power. These little balls of energy, they're gonna kill him. As long as there is even a small piece of him left, he can survive. However, he had not expected these small balls to be so powerful at all. Plus, there were several of these balls. The queen has noticed that it's a grand and powerful technique, and she really likes it. Aurora was a bit perplexed by the strength of this guy, against whom even a level 6 monster was powerless. Sila Zhong Tianshun couldn't be imagined. After that, the result of this battle was seen on the ground. The source of life returned to its original form. The vixen noticed that the tentacle monster's uterus was completely gone. Aurora couldn't believe that even the polluted source had come back to life. A Queen was ecstatic. All she could think about was that Zhong Tianshun could unleash all that raging energy right into her. That would be great. After which he landed right at the source. The kid told the treasure to come out, because it was time to get acquainted. A red orb flew out from the water. This treasure has waited 5,000 years, and it has finally arrived. She thought she would never have a day when she would be awakened. She wanted to become one. Suddenly the guy felt something. This treasure is called the Spirit of the Giant Sun. It can provide the bearer with endless yang energy and stamina. It also radiates an indefinable attraction to the opposite sex. The abilities of this spiritual treasure are extraordinarily great. Therefore, he should definitely take advantage of it. Tian Shun feels that he is about to make a breakthrough. Is this really the effect of the influence of the elemental fragments? This is really something. But that sunshine spirit sounds out of the ordinary. Then he remembered the words about indefinable attraction from the opposite sex. He wondered if he was really such a good treasure. Baiqing was so happy that she was able to get to help Zhong Tianshun obtain a spiritual treasure. She was very precious when she was around him. The vixen felt that he needed her. And now Aurora recognized that what he was looking for was indeed in the Fountain of Life. What an amazing fate. She only wondered how she could help him. He noticed that the condition of these two. Is it really because of the spirit of the giant sun? He also noticed that the elf queen had disappeared somewhere. She's the most sensual, isn't she? The guy had a bad feeling for some reason. Lovey didn't understand why such a perfect man existed. He is so handsome, but at the same time, very strong. Remembering the way he fought, then her heart started pounding frantically. She just couldn't stop it. He went down to the Aurora and the vixen. Aurora wondered if it wasn't too direct that the first thing he did after the battle was to come to them. Vixen replied that she was supposed to help him find a spiritual treasure, and there was no need to thank her for that. He is, after all, reacting to the village, so it is up to Aurora to repay him. They've been together for so long, so the guy must know how the vixen feels. Will they finally make this move? Bai Qing has been waiting for this moment for a long time. The guy only listened to their wishes in silence. He understands exactly what they want, so do his best to satisfy them. But first, he needs to deal with the most difficult person first. Specifically the Queen of the Elves. She is now under the influence of a giant sun spirit. There is an incredible desire radiating from her. If she can't, it will quickly extinguish the fire inside her. She will explode and die. And right now, Tian Shun is the only one who can save her. Everything depends on him. If the Elf Queen hadn't met the protagonist, she wouldn't have become one. Therefore, all these things are his responsibility. And this is a responsibility a man should not run away from. The protagonist will help her. The girl saw his perfect body, which made their noses bleed. Now they can die in this life without regret. He approached the queen, and she turned her attention to him. The guy suggested that it wasn't the most convenient place to solve their problem. So he suggested finding another place. They moved inside the Qianqiu mirror. Lovey didn't realize if this was heaven on earth, and why this guy is naked in front of her right now. This is too much of a shock for the queen. He noticed that the girl had come to her senses a little. She was on fire now and needed help to save her life. Had he come to her to reward her, then she would not be polite. Foxy and Aurora wondered what those two were doing there. Sister Stockings flew into Aurora. Bai Qing noticed that even the Elf Queen's dress was also here. They are together in the same space, and both are naked. It was clear that they should have already started by now, and it looks like it's going to be a fierce battle. It's the turmoil that's keeping us on our toes. She kissed Tian Shun several times to absorb his spiritual power. However, she had never made such deep contact before. She was starting to get jealous, so she didn't want to just sit here and wait. The vixen walked into the mirror. Aurora was the only one left. But what can she do if she also has the desire present? However, she was too ashamed to go there of her own free will. Suddenly, Aurora heard the screams of a guy throwing all his strength at her. She wouldn't lose in this. The girl couldn't wait any longer. She had never felt so excited before. So she would have to pull herself together and take a chance. After which she stepped inside the mirror. She couldn't even imagine that there was such a huge space in this narrow entrance. Tian Shun is just an incredible person. Aurora thought to herself that she should find these guys. The guy had only done so much for her that she just had to repay him. Gotta follow the queen's example. After which, she felt Zhong Tianshun's aura. She began to imagine what they might have been doing there. Even from the performance itself, her legs began to tremble, after which she fell down. It's still so interesting just to watch. But what if she joins? That's what it wants more than anything. Suddenly, she heard Tian Shun's voice asking if she was scared. If she was, then she didn't need it. This isn't the right place for Aurora. He opened the mirror of 1,000 autumns to save her sister. That's why it's better for her to go back. However, Aurora refused. She wanted to stay and repay him. Just like Sister and the little fox. The guy noticed that the power of the giant sun essence was so terrifying. Looks like he's in for an eventful time. A while later, the elves noticed that the Fountain of Life had become so clear. They wondered what kind of battle had happened last night. They were also curious about the interdimensional passage. The girl mentioned that they hadn't met the Queen or the Aurora Princess yet. They were starting to worry about getting sucked into that dimensional passage. We need someone to go in there and take a look. However, it could be dangerous. There was an Elven girl who volunteered. During last night's battle, she was only in the Queen's way. Now she's going to make up for lost time. She hoped they were okay. Without their queen, the elves were doomed. Suddenly, she noticed something that made her uneasy. Then the girl fell to her knees. The others wondered what she saw there. and why she got so excited that she even fell to the ground. She told me it was a passageway to heaven. Others thought she was just crazy, talking about it being a paradise world. They also wondered if she had seen a queen and a princess there. The girl told me that there was a queen and a princess and a very handsome man. They were inside. After which, the elf queen came out of there and said that she was too tired. Zhong Tianshun is too good. Her whole body even aches. But it feels great. The princess came out of there thinking her back was about to break. It was a little painful, but still she was happy. She can keep precious memories like yesterday with Zhong Tianshun. She feels it was worth it for Togo. After that, the main character carried a face out of there that thought that guy was too awesome. She even thought that she was dying. Tian Shun replied that she was just exaggerating and couldn't walk. However, the vixen felt that this was not an exaggeration because she was very sensitive. The protagonist only remained silent. The queen told the fox not to try to dominate the guy all the time. In a few minutes, it would be the elf queen's turn to be carried. She had put the most effort into it last night. The other elves thought it excellent that Her Majesty the Queen and Her Highness the Princess were safe and sound. The tentacle monster had been destroyed, and now they had even found a human. The elven women began to feel as if something had changed in this man. It was as if he had become even more beautiful. He turned his attention to them. The girls couldn't look him in the eye. This guy was too hot. The girl reported to the queen that even though the finger monster had still been destroyed, it seemed they had also lost the blessing of the life source. The water had indeed lost its effect. The queen didn't understand how this could have happened. It was her fault that she had been so busy last night. How dare she neglect the fountain of life? If they don't have the blessing of the fountain of life, it means that the elf clone might die out. And now there is only one person who will have the important task of breeding the elf clan. And of course, they looked at the main character. The fighters asked why they were all looking at Tian Shun. Did they really want to entrust him with all the tasks of procreation? The whole elf tribe is pinning their hopes on just one guy. Do they really want to drive her to his death? The queen began to claim that the elves were white-skinned, cute and charming. Would Pul Shun let them disappear? She offered to stay in the elf village permanently. They need him after all, especially the queen. But he's too busy to live here permanently. Fox mentioned that this guy is on an important mission, so he can't stay here forever and help them create a small shelf. Plus, it would wear out his body. What a pity. Could he really not stay? The queen didn't want her destiny with Tian Shun to end here. She had even thought of a name for their child. Perhaps he has a way to revitalize the source of life. Lovey wondered what the method was. Should the two of them bathe in the source of life and work on improving themselves together? One must use the powerful energy the two of them will release into the source of life to revitalize the source itself. However, it's not what she thinks it is. The protagonist needs to perform a traditional and ancient ritual. This Triton needs to be conducted in a top-secret setting. He asked them to go back to the elf village and wait patiently. And also, they must not peek in any way. Because of the influence of the spiritual core of the great sun, the source of life spread its grace, and from this the elves came into being. However, they do not know all the causes and effects, but as a thank you for the gift of life, the elves worshipped and guarded the spiritual core of the great sun for 5,000 years. He only invented what was already his. He just can't watch their kind die out. The queen was still curious as to what this ritual was that it was shrouded in mystery. She must find out the truth. Foxy was also curious about the method of reviving the life source. Besides, she would have to return that spiritual artifact. The girls turned their attention to each other. The queen asked, "Didn't the guy say no one should peek? So why did the fox come for it anyway?" Bai Qing mentioned that the queen was doing the same thing. Lovey decided not to argue with her. However, they must keep the fact that they were peeping at Tian Shun a secret. Suddenly they noticed that the guy was starting to undress again. They wondered what kind of ritual it was that needed to be performed in such a way. After which, the protagonist summoned a black dragon. Lovey couldn't believe that Tian Shun had actually summoned this huge beast. This monster had such a strong body, she simply couldn't help but respect it. The vixen also felt that there was life boiling within this dragon. As soon as she saw it, her body began to tremble. The guy is gradually transferring his power to the black dragon. It is a power to be reckoned with. It won't be long before the black dragon explodes with Zhong energy and completes the ritual. They were both looking forward to it. After that, the dragon shot into the spring. The source of life began to overflow. There was too much water here, and the queen had percolated to a trickle, being at a distance. It was no longer a spring, but a raging flood. Even the fox could feel the life flowing in this place. Could this treasure be capable of such a thing? Afterwards, the main character returned to them and informed them that the source of life had now been restored, but the blessing must last for a certain amount of time. If it takes too long, it may not work. When the time comes, all that is needed is another such ritual. The elf queen noticed that thanks to the guy, the elf clan survived the disaster. Therefore, he is their savior. However, the vixen thought about the fact that this is not just their savior, but even their creator. However, the protagonist was mindful that no one was allowed to watch his ritual. The most important thing in this ritual is privacy, and if he is disturbed, he will have a difficult awakening. Bai Qing apologized for peeping, explaining that she was very worried. She didn't realize that it could be a big mistake. Besides, if he was angry with her, he might punish her. However, the vixen was covered up by the elf queen, who explained that she was the one who started the whole spying thing. The fox is innocent. If he wants to punish someone, let him punish her. Plus, she noticed that that black dragon was really cool. Have her summon him to punish the queen. She has sinned so badly that she must be punished severely. The guy shouldn't feel sorry for her. There were too few elves in the looking glass of 1,000 autumns, and she didn't seem to have enough. It seems that her fifth point is too fond of adventure, so it was time to teach her a lesson to learn. After which he swung around to spank her. That's exactly how this guy didn't defeat her. She didn't listen to June and deserved to be punished. The queen had long dreamed of such a punishment. The fox could only hear the queen's cries for him to teach her a lesson. Let him make her what he wanted her to be. After the cruel punishment, night came. The protagonist wondered if that was enough punishment. She should be satisfied this time. Lovey replied that it was cruel. However, it was very pleasant, so from now on the queen would be obedient to Jun. Foxy asked since he wanted to punish the queen, let him punish her properly. But why was she caught in the act? Now she can't even stand up. The protagonist apologized for getting too caught up in the game. It was a moment of passion. There was a time when he didn't seem so sensitive, but that was no longer the case. Could it be thanks to the giant spirit of the sun? There are 7 more Wensheng fragments scattered everywhere. He and the little fox and also have to hurry up to set off. The elf queen inquired about leaving her Zhong Tianshun here. She knows that keeping him in the village is impossible, yet she just wants to be with him. Lovey is unhappy in her position as elf queen. She wants to go outside the village and see the outside world with him. She asked me to take her with me. Tian Shun could see that she was speaking from the bottom of her heart. This girl really wants to go with him. Now that she had made her decision, she would go along with them. Beixing wondered what would happen to the village then. How can the village be left without a leader? There's already a candidate to take the queen's place, and it's a princess. Aurora is not only good-hearted, but also responsible. She is talented, and the people trust her. Aurora is definitely worthy of the title of Elf Queen. Meanwhile, we're about the night a bunch of skulls someone stepped on. It was a demon god. Some spirit noticed that this guy was showing his strength. He really couldn't believe that there was a newcomer like him in the demon clan. The 8th-ranked magical creature, the Skeleton King, wondered what this guy came here for. Does he really want to offer his soul to become one of the king's men? The demon god will never become his subordinate. It has to be the other way around. He's here to force the Skeleton King into submission. However, the Skeleton King reads unperturbed. How dare he say such a thing here? He's the 8th strongest monster in the world. He is the king of the undead and the lord of death. The demon god knows it all. If he wasn't so powerful, the demon wouldn't have done it himself. If the Skeleton King submits to him, he will live. The Skeleton King thought that this kid didn't seem to understand the situation. Let him look at the bones under his feet. It was guys just like him trying to challenge him. Be it beast or demon, if someone challenges the Skeleton King, they will get what they deserve. He stands on the bones of the dead, and he will be no exception. Many skeletons appeared in front of him. The Skeleton King ordered his warriors to destroy it. After that, they all pounced on the demon god. The pile of skeletons began to glow red, whereupon the demon god threw them all away from him. Those insects were too much of a nuisance to him. He didn't come here to crush those skeleton soldiers. He came here to subdue the Skeleton King. If he doesn't give the demon god his powers, he loses the right to obey him. The Skeleton King claimed that he had himself to blame for what would happen. He's been at it for centuries. These bones are not just the bones of the fallen and the wretched warriors. It is also a source of power for the Skeleton King. Let him watch carefully. This is the highest form of Skeleton Queen. The Skeleton King wondered what it was like to see him in that form. It wasn't like he'd tucked his tail and run away. Inside it was a red pearl. The demon god also noticed a tainted weapon called the Pearl of Death. So it's here. However, the Skeleton King didn't know what this Pearl of Death was. Wasn't the king the target of this guy? Suddenly he fell on a mountain of bones. The Skeleton King didn't understand why his body was out of control. He asked the guy what he had done to him. In the fire, much told that the Tesseract demonic dominator can lord over the bodies and minds of all demons. All would bow at his feet. Even human beings who possess demonic intelligence will submit to him.